I'll be your waiter for today.
Yeah, that's
really?
right. Yeah,
great. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
I'll give you a drink.
Diverting late-night football conversation for prostitutes.
How dare you!
Chronic back pain sufferers.
Done the old back again.
And security guards who haven't quite nodded off yet. Wake up! The Michaels, Graham and Parry on Talk Sport. For when two mics are better than one.
Look at the light!
I'm organised. My life is organised.
No,
And
you
if
just go to the pub and have a pint of beer.
Well, I wouldn't actually. If it was a hot day like that, I'd have a pint of lager and lime. Noir Blanca Fariari.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he refused to speak to me because he said I was too intoxicated to be talking any sense. Seriously.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say that it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. A very good morning to Mr. Parry.
And a very good morning to you, Mike. I think we now know who are going to be the two teams in the Champions League final.
I think, as you'll find,
Wales.
as I predicted some time ago,
yes.
Juventus against Real Madrid.
Yeah, well, I've been saying since the start of the season.
You said Monaco were going to win.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
You said that
I didn't.
last
I don't
night.
know why you say that. I said Juventus are too good to be overtaken by Monaco.
But I agree that you said that they would probably win over two legs.
Thank
you. You told me that last night, because Monaco were playing at home, that Monaco would probably start off with a lead.
No, I didn't. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, never mind.
Point is that it's going to be quite spectacular in Cardiff.
Cardiff, yes. Millennium Stadium.
Do you know where that is, boyo?
Do I know where Cardiff is? I spent many a happy hour in
The
Cardiff.
Millennium.
I spent many a happy hour in that stadium. I spent many a happy hour in the Hilton Hotel there.
Yes, that's
in
right.
the St David's Hotel and Spa.
And the Marriott.
And, of course, in the Marriott as well.
Marriott is the closest one to the ground.
I also spent a lot of time in Celtic Manor.
Yes.
I also spent an awful lot of time in the Vale of Glamorgan,
yes.
where there's a rather nice country club. Where
Spend any time in your office doing some work?
Very little.
Yeah, very little, yeah.
The office was not really to my liking.
No, well, work isn't to your liking either.
No, work is very much to my liking. We had the first, funnily enough, the first office we had was one of those temporary offices. You know, the ones you can rent.
You mean a porter cabin?
No, but you know that there's a company that you rent offices from.
Yeah, I know.
And they give you, like,
the guy who runs
support.
it was a friend of Sir Nicholas Lloyd, editor of the Express, and he made a fortune.
Yes.
He rented offices all over the world. What was it called?
I can't remember what the name of it was.
Something like a Vasti or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
No, Vasti's a credit card, but it was something like that.
It was something like that. I mean, Sodexo is the catering company.
Oh, that's right.
And it's similar to that.
Yeah.
But the first office we actually opened, because it was all meant to be done in secret, was by the M4. So you'd come off the M4, one of the Cardiff exits.
Brilliant.
And there was a hotel there and a pub, right?
Yes.
It was a Holiday Inn Express, a pub, and this office building, and we had the office there. So I used to just zip down from London on the motorway and get myself stuck into the pub. Where the office was.
Excellent.
Because the office was quite small. You could really sit there and basically hold court in the pub.
Yeah, good idea.
And then stay the night in the hotel, fire back to London the next morning.
Yeah, good idea.
Never actually went into the city at all.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, of course, they moved the FA Cup final to the Millennium.
They did.
When the Wembley shut down just after 2000.
Yes.
You know, it was about 5 or 6 years because nothing happened to Wembley for the first 2 years. So I started going to Cardiff for things like Cup finals, England internationals and all that.
I'm pretty sure our mutual friend and I went to see Liverpool play Birmingham, I think it was, in the League Cup final.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And I think the roof was closed for that one.
It could have been. I remember the one in which Michael Owen scored twice to deny Arsenal.
Right.
And Ray Parlour was playing for Arsenal.
Was he? Yeah.
Liverpool won 2-1.
Okay.
I think that was the season they won like 3 cups or something like that. But no, I didn't know too much about Cardiff before I first went there.
It's a great city.
It's a great city. Great city, I agree. And so I stayed in the Marriott and I had a room at the front, and then opposite the front of the Marriott there's that row of cafes and bars,
That's
you know,
right. Yeah.
and all that kind of
There's
stuff.
a sort of pedestrian precinct.
That's right, yeah.
At the bottom of St Mary's Street.
Yeah, so I get my tickets for the cup final because obviously I was a favoured guest, you know.
Were you not covering it then, or were you...
I'd done a bit of work the night before, and I'd done the breakfast show. That's right, I'd done the breakfast show in the morning in some bar which had an open terrace, and all these local yobbos came and threw leeks at me. Yeah, Cardiff people, yeah.
Was this something that Mr. Brazil had organised?
Yes, I think he had, yeah. He'd encouraged them the night before to come along and pelt me with leeks.
Yeah, in many ways you were very much his kind of whipping boy.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Shocking, really.
And also, I insisted, because we were doing the breakfast show in a Cardiff bar, that I would sing the cup final song for everybody at the end of the show.
Well, Abide With Me.
Abide with
It's not particularly Welsh,
me.
is it?
Well, this is the point. Fast for the
That doesn't mean you have to sing it now.
evening tide.
I thought it was Eventide.
It is, yeah.
Not evening tide.
Oh, well, it's the way I roll my eventide.
Yeah, eventide.
Yeah, and then all these people started throwing these leeks at
Quite
me,
right,
right?
too.
And actually, that was a cup final that Chelsea attended because a lot of the Chelsea supporters were throwing leeks at me for some reason, so that was a different year. But anyway, the point of my story was, at the first one, did the show and all that, I was a bit of a star in Cardiff, having just done the breakfast show, so I got invited to, really good sort of thrash before the FA Cup final. So on my ticket, it said... the hospitality lodge that you're going to is in the Cardiff Arms Park.
Oh, yes.
So I'd had a few sherbets by this time.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, so I went up to this guy and I said, somebody sent me a joke invitation. He said, what do you mean there, boyo? Yeah. And I said, well, somebody sent me this joke invitation saying I should go to Cardiff Arms Park. I said, of course, you knocked down that old wreck about 20 years ago, didn't you? And he said, oh, no, boyo, it's still here. I said, no, it's not. So I took him the door. I said, see that?
The Arms Park, as they call it.
I said, see that? I said, that's the Millennium. I said, that was built with, sort of taxpayers' money for the RFU, the Welsh RFU.
The WRU, actually.
WRU, that's right, yeah. And I said, and it's a great stadium and all that. I said, but that's on the side of what used to be the Cardiff Arms Park.
Yeah.
So don't tell me the Cardiff Arms Park's still here, mate. It doesn't exist. Anyway, it did.
Yes.
They hadn't knocked it down.
No,
I didn't realise.
Yeah.
And they use it as a sort of training ground,
Right.
But the point is, and this is why I'm telling you this story, because all my stories have a crucial fact within them.
Well, let's hope you get to it soon.
Yes,
because
exactly.
We've only got 3 hours.
Exactly. Is that the Millennium is a great bowl in which to play football, and it's great for the fans and spectators.
Except...
You get a great view.
Except for one thing.
Well, except for the one thing I'm going to tell you. Behind the scenes, there is very, very little corporate space to entertain...
That's not the problem.
...fulsomely.
No, that is not the problem.
Well, it is a problem, believe me.
Not really, because...
No, don't dismiss it. I'm talking about the Champions League final,
I will dismiss
where this is vital.
Yeah,
it's vital.
Well, listen to me, because I attended Millennium Stadium events, right, for about 4 years on the trot.
I went to 6 cup finals there.
So
okay,
you should know.
And 7 England internationals.
So then you should know that there is loads and loads of space around the stadium where, for example, the TV companies will erect various things where
that's
you can go.
That's what I'm saying, and you have to go outside the stadium and come in to watch the game.
No, that's fine, nobody minds that.
So you agree with me, there is no space inside the stadium for the vast amount of corporate entertaining which will be needed.
Well, I'm not saying there's no space, but I mean there is...
There's very little.
Well, there's maybe less space than there is at Wembley, because Wembley...
No, there's about 1/10 of the spaces at Wembley.
Well, I mean, I don't know.
No, there is really, Mike. Look, what I'm saying is...
I'm sure that you know Wembley better than... What I'm saying is there's plenty of space for them to do all of the things they want to do.
Right, can I just say this to you?
Yes.
When, for instance, I went to the Champions League final in Parry, when Arsenal
was that at the Stade de France?
That was at the Stade de...
Or the Parc de France?
No, it's Stade de France, definitely.
Stade de France, which is a massive stadium.
It's a massive stadium. Yeah. But even that massive stadium could not cope with the facility that the main sponsors wanted to entertain their investors.
Right. Well, maybe they got too much hospitality.
Well, let me tell you, it was in fact, they built a city right next door to the Stade de France, a huge place, which, you had an armband on to get into and all that kind of stuff. It was the size of the stadium.
I mean, in modern day now sort of sporting events, that's not unusual, is it? I mean, you go to Cheltenham, that's what you have. You have all sorts of different areas that you go into. I don't think that the Millennium Stadium is a bad venue on that basis.
Now, the same thing happened at the Champions League final in Moscow when Chelsea play Manchester United.
What was the name of that stadium?
The Moskova.
Moskova.
The Moskova, yeah. Right. And again, they had to build a village right next to the ground, whereas at Wembley... They don't build a village next to the ground because it is all inside. You see what I mean? There are a few hotels.
I think you're slightly missing the point here, though, that the Champions League final is about the people, right? You're supposed to be a man of the people.
Yes, I am.
It's not about corporate hospitality.
It very much is
about the event. And the thing that I was going to raise about the problem with the Millennium Stadium is that the turf at the Millennium Stadium has never been very good, because you know how they grow it on pallets and they bring it in.
Yes.
And so it doesn't actually live there.
It doesn't get enough sunlight.
Well, not only does it not get enough sunlight, it doesn't live there.
No.
It's movable grass.
That's not necessarily a problem.
It is a problem.
Lots of stadiums.
It's a massive problem.
Lots of stadiums in like Japan and places like that have movable pitches.
Yeah, but they may have, but none of them tear up in the same way the Millennium Stadium pitch does.
Anyway, you're being dismissive about
I'm not. I'm talking about something that's going to have an effect on the football rather than have an effect on the bladderation, which is what you're concerned about.
I'm talking about the event. It is a massive event. It's a Champions League final. It's a massive. It's one of the biggest sporting events of the year.
It is.
And you need a lot of facilities to make it work.
Are you saying it shouldn't be held there? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that you have to move the Champions League final around. But I don't think that in a list of the top 6 venues in Europe for a Champions League final, Cardiff would necessarily have been in that list prior to prior to the need to spread the munificence of the availability of the dosh that is now generated by the Champions League.
Well, some people would say that it wouldn't be in the top 10 of stadiums in Europe.
No, it wouldn't be
However,
top 10, no.
They use more than 10 stadiums in the same way that the Europa League final, sometimes it's held in places where there's not enough tickets for the actual fans of the teams to go to, because 20,000 tickets are immediately given out to the great and the good of UEFA.
That's right. The Europa League final was in Eindhoven, PSV. PSV Eindhoven.
PSV
It's a very
Eindhoven.
nice town. Nice to go there.
Yes.
I went there to watch the Middlesbrough. They get beaten 4-0 and Steve McCann is the boss, you know.
Yes.
It's not good. It's not good.
Where is PSV Eindhoven?
It's in Eindhoven.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is Eindhoven near Amsterdam?
Well, everywhere's near Amsterdam, isn't it? Because Holland's a small city. Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Eindhoven are like a triple axis of Dutch life.
Yeah.
With a bit of Hague. A bit of the Hague.
The Hague.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
How about this? Somebody has very kindly sent me somebody that he thinks you might be related to.
Yes.
Back in the days of the Roman Empire.
Oh, yeah.
The Lanigan. And this is a former Roman senator, right?
Yes.
Whose name was Lucius Municius Plancus, right? And it says, along with Talleyrand 18 centuries later, he is one of the classic historical examples of men who have managed to survive very dangerous circumstances by constantly shifting their allegiances.
Really?
And he's suggesting that this is where you would have found your raison d'etre.
Not at all.
Constantly shifting your allegiances.
Not at all.
Anyway, he's from 87 BC.
It's very good. But one thing all my friends will tell you is that one of my strongest qualities is loyalty. Fierce loyalty to those who I believe in and stand by, okay? I'm fiercely loyal.
Fiercely loyal to whom?
To people who I rate.
Who have you been loyal to?
What?
Who have you been loyal to?
I'm loyal to a lot of people.
One person you've been loyal to?
Oh, who's that?
Can you name one person you've been loyal to?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yes, loads.
Can you name one?
No, I'm not going to personalise it.
I don't think you can name one.
No, you'll think I'm bigging myself up because I help people out on a regular basis.
That's not the same as being loyal.
It is loyal. It is
loyalty goes both ways, right? You have to be loyal to people when they're on the way down as well as when they're on the way up.
I'm not really interested in people on the way down.
Exactly, that's what I mean. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad dream. You end up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights. These are crazy.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics, of course, and there will be Porky Vision coming up a little bit later on. The Porky quiz tomorrow is on Wellington, I believe, isn't it?
It is. The Duke of Wellington.
The Duke of Wellington, yes. The independent quizmasters have been informed. Now,
Indeed.
Trevor has sent this picture, which is rather nice. He says, this is my office today. Now, have a look at that. Now, feast your eyes on that vista.
What is that?
Well, it's a scene from the seaside. I don't know precisely where.
Sorry, why is that your office?
It's not my office, it's his office.
Oh, it's
Trevor.
his office.
He
Well,
has tweeted us this picture.
Well, where is it?
He doesn't say where he is.
Well, it's not very good sending a picture of
Why
a
not?
beach and a blue scene saying this is my office
Well,
without
he lives
telling us
in
where
Australia,
it is.
so it's probably somewhere in Australia.
Well, Australia's got a lot of coastline, actually.
It has. Well,
so
you're going to now give me a hard
non-
time for showing you a nice picture, which I thought would lift your spirits and make you think, oh, that would be a nice place to be.
I'd like to know where it is.
Well, maybe Trevor will tell us where it is.
Well,
Instead of
Trev, tell us where it is.
harping on and on and on like some, old slapper trying to get some more details out of me. I don't have them.
Well, you should. I mean, you're supposed to have an inquiring mind as a journalist. You're supposed to say, oh, that's a nice vista,
Well,
as you
Trevor
described
started out
it.
by tweeting and saying that he was waiting for the Two Mic Show to start in Australia.
Yeah.
And then he says it's a very nice picture. He's probably now turned off the radio because you've insulted him.
All I'm asking is a very basic question. You
Right.
show me a picture of a location, right?
Well,
and
it
I
looks
say,
nice, doesn't it?
I say, where is it? And you say, I don't know. It's a nice beach,
Well, it's
isn't
in
it?
Australia. It looks nice.
Well, Australia's got a lot of coast. I've told you that 15 times.
Okay, then.
Yeah, so is it Perth? Is
I
it
don't know.
Western Australia?
I don't know. Perhaps
Is it
Trevor will-
Queensland?
Hopefully
Is it
he
the
will-
Gold
Perhaps
Coast?
he'll let us know.
Is it Sydney?
Perhaps he'll let us
Is
know.
it Botany Bay?
Well, you've been to half of these places. Surely you might recognise it.
How do you recognise one beach from another, you oaf?
I don't know.
You know,
the Verminator
the sand
says this.
is brown and the sea is blue. That's pretty permanent on
Well,
beaches.
you just asked me to identify it without knowing where it is, so stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
No.
The Verminator says this. Porky's lost it again, doing his Steve McLaren impression in German.
What do you mean? Oh, no, don't be silly. I was merely recognising with the situation that I encountered when I was at PSV, that's all.
PSV Eindhoven.
Yeah, PSV
Now,
Eindhoven.
Celta Vigo is the place where it's all happening tonight. Do you know where that is? Or would you
Celta?
like me to tell you where that is? Celta Vigo.
Of course I know where it is.
Where is it?
It's in Spain.
Where in Spain?
In Ceuta.
Where's Ceuta?
Ceuta
Where is it?
It's in mid-Spain.
It's not, actually. It's northwest Spain. Galicia.
Yeah, northwest. Mid-northwest.
Mid-northwest.
Yeah.
It's the bit of Spain that's right above Portugal.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, which I know very well because I've driven that route.
Where Deportiva La Coruña are.
Yes, I know that, yeah.
Well, why did you say it was in mid-Spain then?
I said mid-northwest.
Why can't you just admit you don't know?
Hang on. I once drove a Ford Ranger or something like that, you know, a sort of pickup
Ford
truck.
Ranger?
Yeah, from Madrid to Lisboa, okay?
Really? How long did that take you?
I think it took a day. We went from... because the thing is, we flew to Madrid to pick up these cars because they were being sponsored, and then we had to drive them to Lisboa for the championships in 2004. So I know that part of the world very well, and a lot of it is arid and deserted, and rather... What's the word I'm looking for? Scrub-like, you know what I mean? And,
scrub-like.
And when you come across people who live there...
A lot of Spain between the cities is desert, basically.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I agree. It is like desert.
Well, it is desert.
And the people who live there are the sort of people you would find in a kind of... on the Russian steppes, you know what I mean?
Why would you find them on the Russian steppes?
Well, they're the same sort of people. They look as though they're displaced. No, not displaced. They look as though
you've been in trouble about this before.
No.
You slagged off the Spanish people and you had to apologise.
No. What I'm saying is they look...
started saying that they all run donkeys.
No, they are salt-of-the-earth types who live off the land and all that kind of stuff, you know. And they would not enjoy being city dwellers, put it that way.
Now, a couple of tweets have come in from Cardiff. Bolo says this: the hospitality village is in Sophia Gardens next to the castle. Right. The Arms Park is where Cardiff Rugby play. It's always been there. They knocked down the old International Stadium. Which is true. Here's one from...
I thought Cardiff Arms Park was the old International Stadium.
Well, they called it the Arms Park.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It was all kind of collectively together, but they knocked down the old International part of that, and they kept the other part where the rugby teams still play.
Sorry, with the two
Cardiff
pitches
Blues.
then? With the two
stadiums?
They
were. Yeah, I think they were.
Oh,
yeah.
Right.
Andy says this: so Holland is a small city, according to Porky.
No,
what a tube.
No. Holland is a small country with about 4 cities. Yeah. That's what I said.
Peter says Eindhoven is not a nice town. The whole town is industry. Philips and its employees. No culture, nothing. It's an awful place.
That is absolutely true. And do you know what? I think they have more bikes per head of population in Eindhoven than any other country in the world, any other city in the world, including 9 million bicycles in Peking.
If you believe that song.
Yeah, that's right.
That's just a song, you know that, right?
No, it's just a song, but it's a song based on fact, I was told.
Well, you were told that, but it doesn't mean it's true. Blaze says this: fiercely loyal Porky, the bloke who called a snooker player a former friend just because he lost a match.
No.
Hashtag two-faced.
No.
And Sean says, Porky sums up what is wrong with modern football. Too much corporate and obscene money. Wembley cost 7 times the taxpayers' pound than the Millennium did.
Yes.
And that's true.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true, but it's worth it to have that sort of stadium in your country and say, here we are, this is what we do in this country, football, and we have the best stadium in the world. Were
you not associated with the FA when they were picking the new Wembley, or when they were planning the new Wembley, or would that have been later?
No, it was later. But I mean, I was fiercely loyal to the FA for many, many years. Of
fiercely
course.
loyal.
Fiercely loyal. Yeah.
Well, what about when you used to give away all their secrets on a Friday?
Oh no, that was when I worked for them. I was reshaping the communication lines.
So you weren't very fiercely loyal to them then.
I was reshaping the communication lines. Believe me.
Right. Trevor has tweeted in, by the way, to tell us where he is. He says, "Apologies, Porky. I'm at Kingston Beach, just south of Hobart, in the island state of Tasmania."
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much indeed.
Does that make you feel happier?
It makes me feel much happier. Thank you, because you know, we always like to put a name to a location, don't you, and say what a wonderful part of the world that is.
I thought you just enjoyed the nice picture, to be honest.
Well, yes, I can enjoy a nice picture, but I mean, because I have an inquiring mind, I prefer to know exactly what I'm looking at and where it is.
Okay.
Hey, Tranmere.
I'll try and remember that.
Tranmere won 3-0 last night, by the way. In the
Are they one of your teams?
Well, they are, aren't they? Because my mum and dad were born in Birkenhead, and that's where they're from.
Right.
So
they support Everton, though.
Yeah, of course they do. Yeah, we're an Everton family.
Well, why would they not have supported Tranmere? What would they have had to do that then?
Well, Tranmere was their second team because Dixie Dean, who is the all-time greatest goal scorer in English football, left Tranmere to go to Everton, and he was my grandfather's best mate.
Ah.
So we have a very close connection with the city.
I see.
And I see that Tranmere beat Aldershot 3-0. Tranmere took a huge step towards return to the Football League after convincing first leg victory over the National League playoff semis.
Is that the playoffs?
Playoffs, yeah.
Very nice. Well, Millwall are in the playoffs tonight.
Millwall.
First leg of their playoffs, so we'll see how they get on.
Millwall.
Holmesy says this. Please inform Mr. Parry that the city is called Vigo and not Celta. That's like saying Manchester is based in United.
Yes.
In the mid-central
Yes, I know
northwest.
that. I'm just talking about colloquial language. I'm not talking about what they're officially called. Of course not.
Right.
goodness sake, you know, people don't half jump on small issues.
Well, they do
days,
like to point out when you've made mistakes because you never do it yourself because you don't think you do ever make any mistakes.
Yes, I know, but people get a bit oversensitive about these so-called mistakes. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Now, I'll tell you what I was going to talk to you about. I was going to talk to you about, which is very interesting, touched upon earlier, but worthy of much, much more focus. Chelsea planning to stay at Stamford Bridge now until the end of 2019-20 season.
How's that going to work?
Delays to the start of the structural work on the new stadium. Fantastic story, this, because Mr. Abramovich, who is one of the richest men in the world and obviously a Russian oligarch billionaire who's done immense good for the game in this country because he really has pumped probably billions into the game and created Chelsea as one of the stellar clubs of Europe. Even he, with all his influence and his wealth and his money, can't get over this planning problem which Chelsea have got on the site where they are.
No, indeed.
A fascinating
I mean, you could
scenario.
say, I suppose, because he was one of the first sort of multi-billionaire owners of a football team in the Premier League, that he's created all of this mad money scene, though. As well. I mean, I'm not saying that he's responsible for bad things, but, you know, because he started the sort of the race to the top with money, that basically everybody else has followed.
Well, you're absolutely right in what you say. Two things created the money spiral, which massively inflated costs in football. One of them was the Sky TV deal, but you know, millions of the members of the public benefited because they could sit at home and watch football for the first time ever. So there's no argument with that. And the second one was Mr. Abramovich coming in and then suddenly telling Jose Mourinho, oh, you've got a player you fancy, outbid whoever is bidding against you. Just pay whatever you want.
Right.
And then Jose came out and said, yeah, but the problem is, although we can outbid on the purchase of this player, that other club have offered him $20,000 a week. And Mr. Abramovich would say, well, I'll tell you what, we create a budget where we can pay him $30,000 a week.
Yeah.
And that's the way it went. Mr. Abramovich was determined that he was going to create a super club, which is exactly what he's done.
Yeah.
But now he's trying to create a super ground for a super club, and it's proving to be difficult.
Does this mean they're going to have to play somewhere else then before that's all done and dusted?
No, I think from what I can make out from reading the details of this story, it's all about whether they'll finally get the planning permission for what they want to do because of the complex nature of some of the engineering work that's got to be undertaken.
Okay.
You know, one of the main problems is crossing a railway line. They've got to put a huge stadium into a limited amount of ground. How will they do that? By building up and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And
they will have to find a temporary home, from what I understand it. Possibly Wembley, possibly West Ham.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yes.
Very interesting times, because Tottenham, of course, are going to be at Wembley as well. We shall see where this all leads. We'll get some more of this coming up later. Tommy Smith's going to join us as well.
Great.
And Porky Vision later. This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes. Loads more coming up, including Tommy Smith, who's going to be telling us what he made of Juventus last night, who looked pretty damn good, I'd have to say. And it looks very much more like a Real Madrid versus Juventus final. But you can never write anybody off at this stage of the Champions League. Here's one from David, who says, I've driven from Lisbon to Madrid. Takes about 5 hours. Beautiful scenery. It's not like the desert at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, parts of it are, because I have done the trip, and 5 hours is a day's driving. Because by the time you stop for lunch for a couple of hours...
Lunch?
Yeah.
Well, you stopped for lunch for a couple of hours?
Yeah.
What, did you have a drink?
Yes, loads.
Oh, I thought you were driving.
No, I didn't drive.
Oh, you didn't
No,
drive.
I was a driver.
Right.
You know, I was sitting in the passenger seat. Oh, yeah, don't worry about that.
If you were doing a 5-hour drive, shouldn't it be better just to get there, wouldn't it?
No.
Enjoy yourself while you're there.
No, we
Instead
set
of getting
off...
absolutely wasted and
No, I didn't get
about
wasted.
the back of the
We
car.
set off from Madrid after breakfast, about 10 o'clock. So we stopped for lunch at about sort of 12:30. Had a couple of hours of lunch till about 2:30, and then motored on and got to Lisbon at about 5 or 6 o'clock.
Well, I guess you weren't doing any work when you got there then.
Oh, yeah, I was, yeah.
Well, so you were drinking on the day, on the job?
Well, no, I had a drink with my lunch. I didn't get bladderated or anything like that.
I
wine's very cheap.
Sounds incredibly sort of disrespectful.
On the Portuguese-Madrid border,
really?
Wine's very cheap, so you tend to drink it rather than water because it's actually cleaner than the water in that part of the world.
Is that right?
So it's good for your health.
I see.
Yes.
How about this one from Sean, who says, Porky always criticises listeners who have a second team. Now he says Tranmere are his family's second team.
Yeah.
What a plank.
No, I've never made any secret of that. You know, I've told you that before many, many times.
You have been critical of people who have second teams. You've said to me before you could never have a second team.
Well, I don't have a second team, but I always keep an eye out for Chester's results because they're my hometown. I mean, that's natural instinct.
Listen,
that's
I'm not
what people
disagreeing
do.
with you. I'm saying you're perfectly within your rights to have a second team.
Yeah.
just that you've been more than, I would say, insulting to other people who have said that they had second teams in the past.
I don't think so. Now then, you know that later on in the show I'm going to reveal, the secrets of Line of Duty.
Yes, it won't mean anything to me, really, because my only connection to the show is your description of it. I've not actually seen it.
But there are still some things you've got to work out for yourself. That's how I'm going to help our millions of listeners, because they will say, well, Porgy, thanks very much and all that, but I have actually seen the ending myself. But you won't be able to interpret it. It's so complicated.
Have they done it in such a way that they can do another series?
Oh, absolutely. There is going to be a 5th series.
So they haven't killed anybody off, because I was listening to somebody else on another radio station earlier on today who revealed that somebody had been killed off and then said, perhaps I shouldn't have said that.
What do you mean, in Line of Duty?
Yes.
Well, one of the reasons why it's such an outstanding show and such an outstanding writing within the episode so far, which were all on BBC Two until the last one on BBC One, is that the writers and the guy who's credited with being, the inspiration behind it and who created it has no compunction whatsoever about killing off really big name characters represented by big-name actors early on in the series. Yes. He's got no compunction about it whatsoever.
No.
He just gets on with it. So that's what makes it so great.
What we were reading the other day is correct, there's going to be some American spin-off of it as well.
Yes, there is. Yeah, they're going to take it like House of Cards and just shape it their own way.
Yes.
Just like they did when we were talking the other night about Girl on a Train.
That's right.
Now, you heard me talking early, didn't you, about this fascinating situation. In 1962, in this week, I've told you, haven't I? What happened was 2 teams got promoted from Division 2 to Division 1.
You did mention this earlier on to Mr. Goldstein and Mr. Cundy.
Yeah, they didn't quite take it in, really, did they?
Well, you said Leyton Orient and Liverpool, right?
Leyton Orient and Liverpool, yeah. And what's absolutely fascinating is that when they both came up, Liverpool, who, with the greatest respect to all my friends who are Coppites now, and I have a huge admiration for what Liverpool have achieved over the decades.
Yeah.
Liverpool were a music hall joke in the 50s.
Were
they? Coming out of the Second World War and all that, Everton were the predominant team. Everton went down for a couple of seasons, then came back at the end of the 50s. And Liverpool came up in 62. Everton won the championship in 63. But then Bill Shankly had taken control of Liverpool, and believe it or not, 2 years after they came up, they won the championship in 64.
Right.
And again in 66.
Well, that was pretty good then, wasn't it? That was a pretty good...
Oh, it's brilliant. A brilliant revival. But the point I was going to make is that when they came up first off, everybody, in the sort of national newspapers in those days, which was the only form of communication, said Leyton Orient are going to become a super club. They said that Leyton Orient were going to become like Spurs,
I suppose back then a super club was hard to imagine, wasn't it? I mean, in terms of how would you define a super club in the 60s?
Well, Charlton have got claim to being a super club in the sort of 50s and 60s. They used to attract 80,000 people.
Right.
So, they're not very fashionable today. So everybody thought that was going to happen to Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
So Leyton Orient come up to Liverpool, and everybody said Leyton Orient will, turn into a super club. Liverpool will struggle in the shadow of the gigantic Everton team, who were known as the Merseyside Millionaires.
Right.
Because of their connection to the Pools family run by John Moores.
Well, Liverpool had won the First Division a few times before that period in the 60s, hadn't they?
A long time ago.
Yeah.
A long, long time before, and they only had sort of one outstanding player called Billy Liddell. But apart from that, not a great history. Liverpool's history started with Bill Shankly, basically. And he got them promoted that year. Yeah. 2 years later, they won their first league title. 2 years after that in 66.
Right.
Because in 66, Liverpool won the league, Everton won the Cup, and England won the World Cup. And at the opening game of the 66-67 season, when Alan Ball had joined Everton from Blackpool, the 2 captains ran round the ground with the FA Cup, the league title, and then Ray Wilson, who played left-back for England from Everton, and Roger Hunt, who played inside forward.
Although, of course, a lot of people have said since then that Roger Hunt should never have been playing for England, really.
The debate will go on forever about him and Jimmy Greaves. Yeah. They jointly held up the World Cup and ran round Goodison. So that was quite some celebration of football royalty.
Were there any other Liverpool players in the World Cup winning side? I don't think there were they? Apart from Roger Hunt?
Not in the winning side, but I think Peter Thompson, who was a flying winger, was a member of the squad.
Yes.
And I think one of their fullbacks might have been Jerry Lawler. No, Chris Lawler, sorry. Chris Lawler. I think he might have been...
he was a bit later, wasn't he?
No, well, Chris Lawler played in the 65 Cup final with a broken collarbone.
I'm pretty sure I saw Chris Lawler playing in the early 70s.
No. Chris Lawler played in the mid-60s. Chris Lawler and Jerry Byrne were the Liverpool fullbacks. And I think it was Chris Lawler. It might have been Jerry Byrne. I'm not sure about that.
Well, I know for a fact I saw Chris Lawler playing in the Steve Highway team.
You may well have done. He may have been a young player in the mid-'60s. You could be absolutely right.
Yeah.
But a lot of their team was made up of Scotsmen Bill Shankly had brought from Scotland. For instance, Ian St John, the Saint, who became famous.
Scottish, of course, wasn't he?
I said he brought them from Scotland, and the other one was Rowdy Yates, Big Ron Yates.
Ron Yates, yes.
And, in fact, the whole spine was Scottish, because the goalkeeper was a guy called Tommy Lawrence, very ugly man, and rather fat.
You say that.
And he was, as a result of being ugly and fat, he was known as the Flying Pig.
Was he?
Yeah. No, he was. That was his title.
Very harsh.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not being rude about him being
No, I'm sure
ugly
you wouldn't
and
mind
fat,
you calling him that.
But he was an he had a bulky frame, put it that way.
Yeah.
Some players did in those days. Harry Cripps from Millwall, he had a bulky frame.
Yes.
And
well, they weren't these kind of honed athletes.
No, they weren't.
Now.
No, they weren't. And but anyway, the contrast between what's happened to Liverpool since, who've gone on to win 5 European Cups, countless league titles. I mean, second only to Manchester United. They've got about, how many have they got? 18, is it?
Something like that.
Yeah, and FA Cups and League Cups and other titles that they've won over the years. You contrast that with Leyton Orient, who have now gone out of the league.
Well, also can't afford to pay their employees.
Can't afford to pay their employees, and you say to yourself, wow, what a comparison about the fortunes of two clubs. One that was expected to reach the heights, i.e. Leyton Orient, and one that was expected to struggle forever.
Yeah.
Liverpool, and it didn't, of course.
No, it didn't. And you can't really see Leyton Orient for quite some time recovering anything like what they would have wanted to
They'll
be
never recover.
In that time.
They'll never recover.
I mean, I suppose you could say that in a couple of decades' time they might recover.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to say.
Yes.
Here's a piece of information that's come across my desk that you might be interested
Right.
in. People have worked out who Kim Jong-un's favourite football team is.
Oh, yes?
Do you think you would have any idea what that would be?
So this is a joke, obviously.
No, it's not a joke. No, apparently he's a devoted fan of a team in Italy.
In Italy?
Right, Cagliari.
Cagliari,
yeah,
why?
Because apparently one of his countrymen, a guy called Kwang Song Han, once played for them.
Is Cagliari not the capital of Sardinia?
Eh?
Cagliari?
No, I don't think so.
There is a Cagliari in Sardinia.
Is there?
I know, because I've been there.
Ah, you sure that's not Calgary?
Calgary, that is. No, Calgary's in Canada, isn't it?
Well, Calgary is also where Jesus Christ supposedly carried the cross, isn't it?
Really? What,
Yeah,
in Palestine?
No, Jerusalem, when he was taken up to,
But Calgary is also...
Calgary.
Calgary's definitely in Canada.
Well, there is a place in Canada called Calgary,
That's
yes.
what I mean, yeah.
There is.
Yeah. So
but that's got nothing to do with
Cagliari,
Cagliari, which is in central Italy, as far as I'm aware.
I'm sure there's a Cagliari on the island of Sardinia.
Well, you may be right about that, but I'm pretty sure the team Cagliari play in mainland Italy.
Really?
Yeah. And they're now being named by Corriere della Sera, who Gazzetta dello Sport over in Italy, as his favourite team.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, do you think he'll ever turn up for a game?
Well, you never know.
How would they treat him? Listen, talking about that, of course, that's very much mafia territory, isn't it?
Well, you don't tell you any more about this player. He's an 18-year-old wonder kid, right?
Who's this?
Who's the kid who plays for Cagliari.
Oh, I see.
Whose name is Kwang Song Han.
Kwang Song Han, where's he from?
He's from North Korea.
He can't be.
He is.
They wouldn't let him play in Europe.
Well, he is.
No, he must have...
He's the first North Korean to play in Italy's top flight.
No, he must have escaped to South Korea. He must be... the North Koreans wouldn't let one of their players play in Europe.
Well, he does. So he's the first guy that's playing. This is what I'm telling you.
That's astonishing. That's astonishing. His family must have fled to South Korea.
Well, maybe they've said that he is allowed to go and play football there as long as he's under the secure guard of the North Korean embassy.
I doubt it very much indeed. What I think it probably is like, it's probably a situation involving East and West Germany, you know what I mean? When players smuggled across the border so they could play in West Germany.
Apparently, with North Korea's compliments, Han was able to join Cagliari's youth academy in 2015,
right,
and is now working his way up to becoming a superstar amongst Europe's elite footballers.
Yeah, but the problem is, you see, when he becomes a superstar, he then becomes a voice of rebellion.
Well, that may well be.
For the North Koreans, who we were discussing only the other night, some who live in extreme... terror in these work and labour camps.
Maybe this is part of his strategy to try and sort of broaden the appeal of North Korea by starting to use sport, as many dictators have done in the past.
I find it very odd.
Well, it is very odd, but it's an interesting story.
Yeah, well, interesting.
So he made his professional debut in their 3-1 away win in Palermo at the start of this month.
Really?
Making him the first North Korean to play in Italy's top flight.
That's very astonishing, that.
Isn't that good?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if it's good. I'm not sure if,
Well, why shouldn't a guy from North Korea be allowed to play football in Europe?
Well, I think he should, but I mean, in doing that, he must use that opportunity to break down the barriers which restrict people in North Korea to a living hell in a country which is a prison.
Well, maybe he will do that.
Yeah, I hope so.
But, I mean, why should he be responsible for doing all of that? I think it's just great news that, the world is a smaller place now, and this kind of thing can happen. I'm grateful to Hamid for texting me that one in.
Thank you, Hamid.
Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. We've got lots coming up, of course, including a conversation in the next hour in which it will be revealed by a Yale professor, no less, why wine drinking is actually very, very good for you indeed. A couple of points of order. Ian Callaghan was also in the England 66 squad.
He was,
according to Bob. Somebody else says that Chris Lawler played for Liverpool from 1960 to 1975.
Right.
So I guess he was playing all through that period.
Yeah.
And Sean says, MG, I hope the... hang on. He says the non-flying pig next to you isn't annoying you too much tonight. But then adds, somebody else adds later on, actually, he's correct this time. Cagliari is indeed in Sardinia.
Thank you.
So there you are.
Okay, there we go.
So this North Korean guy plays for the team in Sardinia.
That's right. Ian Callaghan, I think I'm right in saying, lots of Liverpool fans out there, he still holds the record number of appearances for Liverpool, doesn't he? Because he played until he was about 38 or something.
I think I remember him. I'm watching him playing.
I think he got recapped for England when he was about 34 or something.
Really?
Is my memory maybe failing me?
It may well be.
Yeah.
I mean, because most of our memories are failing us. But let's talk to Tommy Smith, who is, of course, with Sirius. His memory very rarely fails him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to remember much about Scotland's performances, or Ireland's performances, I suppose, though. Tommy, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Hi, gentlemen. How is it going?
Very well, Tommy. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed. Now, we were marvelling earlier on at Juventus' performance last night. Higuain with a couple of great goals and looking pretty well like the team that are going to win the whole thing, aren't they?
No, well, last September, as you will probably remember, I picked Real Madrid. So my little pony is still in the race here. And, the way Ronaldo's going, Juventus certainly have an opportunity. And, I mean, we are jumping the gun a little bit here. But I suppose we could say that Real Madrid and Juventus have 1 foot each in the final. I mean, I just don't see either of them getting knocked out at this stage. Juventus are a very, very good quality team. There's no question about that. But I think maybe Ronaldo just might swing things in Real Madrid's favour.
Well, I mean, if you've got the best defence in the world, which they've got, haven't they, from their record through this tournament, the Champions League, then the only person who's going to crack it is the current best player in the world. And as you quite rightly say, that's Ronaldo. So I totally agree with you. I think I said Real Madrid at the start of the season to be the first team to win back-to-back, but it's going to be the unstoppable force against the immovable object, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly looks like that, and it may come down to something as simple as a set piece. And, I mean, there's one thing about the Italians, they kind of take turns at giving away free kicks. You see one fella runs into you and then the referee says, you better not do that. And the guy beside him will run into you the next time. So they have all that very well organised. And an awful lot will depend, I think, on the referee on the day. I mean, if you look at what happened yesterday with Atletico Madrid, I mean, some of those guys kicked the stars out of the sky.
Yeah.
I thought that English referee would have given out a few more cards.
Yeah, well...
Do we know who the referee's going to be yet for the final, or is that yet to be decided?
I'd say that's yet to be decided,
right. Because I'm looking at a statistic here that somebody sent me earlier on that said the last time Juventus conceded a goal in the Champions League, Barack Obama was still president.
Unbelievable.
And Gary Rowett was still Birmingham manager.
Yeah.
How about that?
Incredible.
Yeah, but when you look at the other side of it, I mean, Buffon has played for 22 years for Juventus and he's never won a Champions League. Yeah. How about that for
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah. Absolutely amazing. But, look, that was last night's game, Tommy, but we can only marvel at the form that Ronaldo's in at the moment. And any team that comes up against him doesn't have much of a chance.
Yeah, it was a wise move. Zidane made a very, very wise move to push him into the middle. I mean, we're all so accustomed to Ronaldo playing on the wing and playing well on the wing, but now he's more like an old-time centre-forward. I mean, he's in where he can really poach goals. And with the kind of form he's in, 2 hat-tricks in 2 games, it's never been done before in the knockout stages of the Champions League. And when you consider the amount of goals he scores, but, I was in a Twitter war last night. All he does is score goals, but he doesn't. I mean, he has more assists this year in the Champions League than any other player in it. So Ronaldo is kind of enjoying a real turn in his fortunes here. And it'd be a very brave man that'll bet against him not scoring in the Champions League final.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, tonight we've got Manchester United taking on Celta Vigo over in northwest Spain. That's going to be Jose Mourinho's only chance, by the looks of things, to get himself into next year's Champions League, because he's kind of blown it in the Premier League now, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. And I mean, I've never heard a guy groan and moan and bitch so much as he is. I mean, he's going to play the under-23 team. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Jose, just put a team out and let them win. Forget about all this moaning. I mean, this is going to be a tough game tomorrow night because Manchester United rightfully have a lot of injuries. They have a lot of problems. And Celta Vigo are not going to go away very quietly. But, I mean, it's such a golden opportunity for Manchester United. I mean, everybody says, oh, yeah, finish fourth in the Premier League. But if you finish fourth in the Premier League, you've got to go into the qualifiers. Yes. If you finish top at the Europa League, you don't have to go into the qualifiers. You're into the competition proper. So which would you rather do? Those qualifiers bring you back at the end of June, maybe the middle of June to have to play them, to have your team ready. I mean, it's crazy. Win the Europa League and you're in the you're into competition.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago watching. I think it was Arsenal had to go over and play Besiktas in the in Turkey in that a very early sort of fourth place qualifying, and it's a pain in the neck. It's a long way to go sometimes. And as you say, Tommy, people are not always ready for the games. They're not fit at that point.
Yeah, it's so early in the season. I mean, I went to Dundalk against Bati Borislav last year in Tala, and I think the game was it was like the last week in June. So where are you going to go? I mean, you're only finished in May. How much time do you have off? You have no time off if you have to play in those qualifiers.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Once again, the tournament this year, Tommy, has illustrated how far behind English clubs are falling in the ascendancy to the top of the European greats, the Champions Leagues. We haven't had somebody in the final now for a number of years.
Yeah, well, those things I think are cyclical. I mean, if you go back and I mean, the problem that English clubs, to me, has had in the European competitions was the fact that they were banned out of them for a few years. And that took an awful lot of time to build back up. And then Liverpool were in a couple, Manchester United. I mean, nobody talks to me about, Manchester United playing Chelsea and Moscow, two English teams in the Champions League final. Yeah. And, these things, you slip away and you slip back. And I think, the English teams, not the English teams, the English FA killed the English teams. They played them over Christmas until they almost dropped dead on the field. There's that many games. And I know it's tradition and I know people love it and everything. But I think at the end of the season, you're paying your price when you come up against these teams that are well rested and good. That's the problem. I mean, it's one thing to come up against a team that's well rested, but you come up against a Real Madrid team, if they're well rested and they're good, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. And do you think Real Madrid have still got to worry too much about winning La Liga? I mean, we know that they've got a game in hand on Barcelona and, anything can happen, but more than likely they're going to win that as well, aren't they?
Well, all they have to do is run their last couple of games and they'll win it, and it looks like they can win it, yeah. Although they were pretty lucky on the weekend. They could have dropped they could have dropped 2 points very easily. But I would say, the odds are that they're in for a double. And I'm just trying to remember, Juventus and Real Madrid met in the Champions League final some years ago, and I think Zidane was playing with Juventus, was he?
Was that not the time when Jose Mourinho was managing Real?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. I think that'd be right.
I think you might be right.
There's a bit of history there,
there is history. And what about the Premier League? I mean, can you see any way that Tottenham can catch Chelsea?
No, I don't think so. I think, they left it just a little bit. They left a little bit too big of a mountain to climb. If they had gotten one victory, or if we were just talking there earlier with David, if they had gotten that, they were leading Chelsea 1-0, and they came out of it losing. If they had gotten a victory that day, it'd be very close now. And, squeaky bum time does an awful lot of things to an awful lot of players that would be under pressure. But I think the way Conte has Chelsea at the moment, they're just in that little bit of a zone because they know they have that 4-point lead. So they don't have to, if they slip up once, they slip up. but then they have to slip up or half slip up again to let Spurs come in, and all the time Spurs have to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Indeed.
So you think United tonight, if they do the business, obviously they should get to the final, and they should be. Ajax, who look like they're going to be in the final at the other side.
Yeah, they should. I mean, if you look back at history and look back, although this United team is far from the team of history, but still, I think that they have enough. They've put in a couple of good games, and if they get a few players back, I mean, Ibrahimovic is a terrible loss. There's no question about that. But Rashford is stepping in now, and we were all saying, well, give the kids some playing time. Well, the kids got playing time now, and he showed that he's out-fashioned enough on Sunday. He won himself a penalty kick, which never was a penalty kick in my books. But he's cunning enough to know what's going on out there.
Absolutely right, Tommy. Listen,
Indeed.
thank you very much.
Tommy,
Indeed.
thank you
Tommy's
very
good
much.
Talking to us from Sirius, of course, which is where he is these days. Lots and lots of other tweets have come in from various people, including this one from where are we? Blaze.
Yes.
It says Porky says Liverpool were a joke in the 50s and Everton were the main team.
Yeah.
Then he started supporting Everton.
Well,
Hashtag Porky Jinx.
I started supporting them from the moment I was born, so
that's what I mean.
That's throughout the 50s.
But, I mean, that's when it all sort of changed, isn't it?
Yes. You're very quick to correct my mistakes on factuality.
Yes.
So I'm going to crack one of yours.
Okay.
You said that Calgary was where Jesus was crucified.
Where he was crucified, yes.
It was actually Calvary.
Calvary, yes, quite right.
Calvary.
Yes, quite right. Well, the difference between you and I, though, of course, is that I'll admit to making a mistake on that. They're very similar words, of course.
No, they're not.
They are.
They're not.
Calvary.
And Calgary.
And Calgary, yes. One letter different.
Not at
One
all.
letter different.
Rubbish. Calvary's got a Y at the end. Calgary hasn't got a Y at the end.
Calgary hasn't got a Y at the end.
No.
What's it got at the end?
I.
Calgary?
Yeah.
Calgary in Canada. Calgary.
No. Calgary, which you've now established is in Sardinia,
No, that's
which
that's Cagliari.
Cagliari, absolutely.
That's not Calgary.
No,
that's
not.
got two different letters.
That's right. It absolutely
So
has.
what are you talking about?
What I'm
You've
talking
wrapped
about
yourself
is
up in an enigma now.
Not at all.
You made yourself sound like an idiot.
No. You've made yourself sound like an idiot.
Cagliari.
By trying to make out that Jesus Christ was apparently crucified in Canada or Sardinia. He wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
It was in
Can you tell the
Palestine.
Can you tell the difference between Cagliari, right, and Calgary?
Oh yeah, I can.
Can you spell the difference?
I could, but it'd take too long.
No, it wouldn't.
No, it will, and our listeners will get bored stiff by me
they are not the
trotting
same
out a load
place.
of letters.
As I said before, I'm more than happy, as I always have been in the past, to admit when I've made a mistake. You, of course,
And me.
never admit to making a mistake.
I certainly do.
Do you?
Yes.
When was the last mistake you made?
Last mistake I made. Let me see. Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I said it was Chris Lawler in the Liverpool player in the England squad. It wasn't. It was Jerry Byrne.
Oh, right,
but I
okay.
did also mention Jerry Byrne.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really a mistake.
That was a mistake.
This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Bolo has got quite a lot to say for himself. He says, I think Porky's lack of knowledge about the Principality Stadium is down to Everton never playing there, unlike Liverpool, who have played there 7 times.
Liverpool have played there 7 times and won a lot of trophies there.
Yeah.
I totally agree. But I have been there an awful lot of times, Bolo.
He also says that if you had a poll of all the fans who've been to the new Wembley or the Principality Stadium, the Principality would win easy.
On what grounds?
I'm not sure that's true.
No, I'm not sure it's true.
I think what's good about the Principality Stadium is it is right in the middle of town.
It is, yeah.
And so you pour out of it and you're straight into the streets.
And you're very close to the pitch when you're inside the stadium.
So it has
and
a
all
bit more of a sort of a feel of the city about it than Wembley, which is a bit more
of course it does.
A bit more sort of disparate.
Well, Wembley's in a suburb of London. It's not in London, if you see what I mean.
But Wembley has more of a sense of occasion about it, I would say.
Yeah, of course it does. Well, Wembley's it's an institutional place because it's called Wembley and it's at Wembley and it's the new stadium. But no, I totally agree. I'm not knocking the Millennium. It is a magnificent structure, as you quite rightly say, which can be seen from anywhere in central Cardiff.
Sure.
So it's a flagship building for the whole city. So I've got nothing against it. I'm just saying that one surprise for me in the Champions League final going there was that it is sometimes a bit restricted on its ability to cope with the amount of corporate you now need.
Sure.
I mean, listen, I'm not trying to be big-headed here, but when you go to one of these corporate villages next to the stadium that's hosting the Champions League, it is massive. You're looking at, the Harrods food hall on 3 different levels and all this kind of stuff. It's massive.
But
now,
people will always say, particularly when it's in a place like the Millennium Stadium, which is the Principality Stadium now, whatever you want to call it, that there aren't enough tickets for the actual honest-to-goodness fans, and it's more about the corporate hospitality. It's more about the media event of the whole thing. And sometimes that's overdone, I think.
Yeah, maybe it's overdone, but it's what makes the world go round in football terms when you see the number of sponsors who are now attached to football because it glorifies their products. Now then, we've just been talking about Italy in areas where the mafia operate, OK?
Well, you mentioned the mafia, I didn't.
Yeah, I mentioned the mafia. And the other thing is, did you see that great picture earlier this week to celebrate the 45th year release of The Godfather?
I did not.
Well, all the great stars, even James Caan, who a lot of people had forgotten about, and obviously Al Pacino.
Well, James Caan, of course, actually was one of the guys that became quite well connected with the mafia because, in fact, he was one of the guys that went and gave a character reference to one of the mafia chiefs in real life.
Really?
Who was actually on trial.
Really?
Yeah, he went down to Centre Street and turned up as a character reference for a genuine mobster.
Do you mean as a result of being in The Godfather?
Yeah, because the mafia loved it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But not everybody became friends with him, but he became very good friends with a couple of the real-life mafia guys.
That's right.
And when one of them was arrested and was standing trial for all sorts of horrible crimes, James Caan went on and gave evidence for him.
Marlon Brando, of course, who's dead.
Yes.
Robert De Niro was in the original
Robert De Niro was in Godfather 2.
Yeah. Duval, Robert
Duval, yes.
And the Diane Keaton, who played
Michael Corleone's
wife. That's right, yeah.
That's right.
And also, what I didn't realise is the daughter of Francis Ford Coppola was in the film as the daughter.
She was one of the kids, wasn't she?
She was one of the kids, that's right, yeah. But anyway, look, the reason I mentioned all that...
She also went on to make Godfather 3, didn't she?
She did. Which
was pretty awful, by the way.
Well,
I've seen that.
That was the one when he had diabetes, didn't he? And he asked for orange and all that kind of stuff. No, it didn't work. Yeah. The famous line in that one was, every time I try to get out, they try to suck me back in.
That's right.
Yeah. Al Pacino. But anyway, the reason I mentioned all that is because I was looking at a colleague of mine from The Thunder at the Times, Melanie Phillips, assessing the whole trilogy of The Godfather and the effect it's had on our lives. And she's come to the conclusion, and Melanie Phillips is a highly intelligent, analytical, political commentator, really, The Times. She says The Godfather was not a gangster movie. It was a fantastic morality tale about how families should stick together.
Possibly so.
She says, you think this was a gangster movie? On the contrary. Although such criticism has undeniable force, it is ultimately misplaced.
Yeah.
The film is not, in essence, a gangster movie. It is an epic family tragedy of the highest order.
Yeah.
It's precisely because it puts loving family life on a pedestal that its deepest message is so devastating.
Yes.
She says the heart of the story is the way the Godfather's son, Michael Corleone, is transformed from a war hero who has nothing to do with the family crime business into a mafia mobster.
Yeah.
The die is cast when he decides to avenge the near murder of his father. And it goes on to say the message, however, is even broader than this. It tells us that everyone can be bought, that the line between business deals and extortion is thin to non-existent, that corruption is endemic in the whole of American society, and therefore, why would you criticise any family for actually tapping into what is, a broad theme of American life?
This is why many of these shows and many of these films and TV series are brilliant, because it's not so much about whether or not they're gangsters and whether they're doing something that's against the law.
Yes.
It's about the way that they are honourable in many ways where we, as supposedly, law-abiding citizens, are not honourable at all.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like The Wire. The Wire is this incredible TV show which has got a couple of British guys in it as well, all set in Baltimore.
Based in Baltimore,
All set in Baltimore, and it's all about the drug business in Baltimore and the politics of Baltimore.
Yeah.
And it was written by a former sort of police beat reporter
that's right,
on the Baltimore paper, the Baltimore Sun.
Yes.
And what you get from the show is that the criminals are actually at least as honourable as the politicians are.
Yeah,
and in fact, in many ways, the politicians are more like the criminals.
Yeah.
And there's more of a code of honour and a code of sort of loyalty amongst the criminal fraternity than there is amongst those who are supposedly law-abiding.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Melanie, who's obviously a big fan of these films, she says...
It's an unusual sort of thing for her to get into, isn't it?
I don't know, she likes the films. She says there's honour and also scruple, while Godfather the Elder, Vito Corleone, that was Marlon Brando, wasn't it?
It was.
Deems gambling to be acceptable because it raises big profits. He high-mindedly refuses to let his family get involved in drugs.
That's right.
We're shown no innocent victims of the crime family's protection rackets. The police are either useless or very corrupt.
That's right.
The villains are those who betray these murderers' own code of ethics.
Yeah.
The Godfather himself is the only arbiter of justice. The film can thus be considered an audacious inversion of morality and an apologia for evil.
Well, it's a bit like
brilliant.
In Goodfellas, which has a similar sort of code of conduct for the people who are the bad guys, if you like.
Yeah.
And at one point, Henry Hill Rael's kind of narrating the story, and he says, you know, that's what the cops never got about the mob, was that it was like the FBI for wise guys, because they couldn't go to the police to get protection, so they had to protect themselves.
Yeah, exactly,
And so they had to have this code of conduct, and certain people were made, and other people were allowed to then deal with them if they were made, but if you weren't made, you couldn't attack them.
Absolutely
and they
right.
were somehow protected.
Fascinating
stuff. I mean, that's why these stories are so brilliant.
Yeah, they are.
And they can go for years and years and years, and you can. I mean, I could watch the first Godfather film tonight, and still enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you as well.
Now,
totally agree.
Scottish Bull says this. How about Mark the Taxi says, don't think Zidane ever won the European Cup with Juve. And Gio Hara says, I think Tommy Smith was referring to the 1998 Champions League final where Zidane played for Juve against Real. Because he was saying that he was pretty sure that Zinedine Zidane had played against Real Madrid for Juventus at one point.
Yeah, but they got beaten, didn't they?
I think
he
so.
only ever won a Champions League medal with Real, didn't he?
I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, you know, there's a lot of facts and figures to be bandied around at this time of the year when you come to the end of the season. And everybody's telling you how great it is. The one main fact is that Real Madrid could become, and I think will become, first team to retain the Champions League.
See, I think there might be a bit of a shock in store for him. I just think this Juventus team is very, very good.
Well,
so that's my. You're always accusing me of sitting on the fence.
Yes.
That is my prediction.
That's your prediction, right?
So don't forget that.
Right now, then, you tried to talk to me the other night, talking about film stars and Godfather and all that, about Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what I was telling you, I think, about Johnny Depp was that he's in the midst of some big court case, isn't he, at the moment?
Well, he also seems to be in the midst of a midlife crisis, to be honest, because it's extraordinary. And the court case is because he has a claim, he says, against his people who manage his money.
That's right.
And that a lot of it's gone missing.
Yeah.
And that he spends something like, $75 million on 14 properties around the world, including a chain of islands in the Bahamas.
Very nice, too.
Yeah,
Does
absolutely.
he not say that these people have embezzled a lot of money from him?
Well, it often happens, doesn't it? You hear about court cases in which... I remember, I think Sting was involved in a court case a few years back, in which, there was some court case about costs and all that. And it always comes out that... with these great rock stars and these film stars who earn tens of millions of pounds, sometimes didn't realise that £7 million had gone missing from their accounts.
Well, I suppose
because they've got so much of it.
But also they employ other people to take care of all that, don't they?
Yeah. But the amazing thing here about the latest revelation about Johnny Depp is that according to transcripts of papers involved in this court case, Johnny Depp has never bothered to learn his scripts, since he's become a big film star, and has been fed his lines for years through an earpiece, a claim from his former manager.
Yeah.
What he did is he employed some bloke who was, sort of a sound technician genius, and this guy devised a system to be able to
just feed him his lines.
Feed him his lines, so he didn't ever have to learn them himself. Yeah. He said this guy was paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year and was retained on a permanent basis. Surprising
in a way that more people don't do that, isn't it? Maybe it's common practice.
Yeah, I suppose so. But he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to employ a full-time sound engineer who was used for years to feed him lines during film production. Depp insisted that the sound engineer be kept on a yearly retainer so that he no longer had to go through the boring ritual of memorising lines.
Yeah, bizarre. Very bizarre. I mean, the other reason we were talking about Johnny Depp the other day was because I did this on... there was a thing on Facebook that says, which highly paid celebrity do you look like, right?
Yeah.
And it found out that I look like Johnny Depp. No,
you don't look anything like Johnny Depp.
Well, that's what it changes into, look.
You look more like Jack Nicholson. As it changes from you to...
It changes to Johnny Depp.
Yeah, rubbish. That's utter nonsense.
Well, I wouldn't want to put you into it in case it breaks it.
If we were doing a radio show and we had an earpiece in and somebody was feeding us our lines...
We are doing a radio show.
Yeah, but and
we do have an earpiece.
Yeah, but...
And somebody does feed us lines.
No, they don't. They don't tell me what to say to you and they don't tell you what to say to me.
No.
But they tell Johnny Depp what to say...
They tell you when it's time to break.
Hang on, shut up for a minute. They tell Johnny Depp what to say to the camera.
Yes.
Surely there'd be a tenth of a second delay while Johnny Depp is listening to what the guy in his ears telling him to say and him actually saying it.
Well, maybe they do that thing where they can be very good. Like if you're on TV, you know how people on television
are told what to say all the time.
Yeah. And if you get into it in a way which is actually, as they describe it, better than sex, you know exactly when to feed the line, and then the person then says it, and it sounds very natural.
Yeah, but I mean, to go through a whole film, I find that astonishing. I really do. Because also...
But they don't shoot a whole film in one go, do they?
No, they don't. They don't. But what I'm saying is, surely the delivery of a line has to go with the emotion that you're supposed to be expressing from having read the script and knowing what's coming next.
Sure.
So how does all that work?
But he knows all that. It's just so that he doesn't get the actual words wrong. I mean, it's a bit like you wanting to make sure you write down the name of the person who's reading the news. Yeah. In case you forget. You know there's somebody coming in to read the news. You know what's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen. But if you don't have their name, you're going to look like an idiot.
No, I never look like an idiot.
No, never.
No.
This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Madness, they call it madness. Madness, they call it madness.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. John says this: the best grounds I've been to, 1, the Stade de Velodrome, 2, Millennium Stadium. Wembley wouldn't even come close. I know he's talking about as an ordinary fan, I suppose.
Yeah, I've been to the Stade de Velodrome. That's Marseille.
Is it? Okay.
South of France.
Right.
And I've been to the Millennium and I've been to Wembley.
That's quite a sort of cauldron of a place, isn't it? I bet,
huge cauldron. It's, Marseille's a fiery place.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, the bubbling pot of mixed race tensions and all that kind of stuff. You've got a lot of that down in Marseille. Yeah. And it's a very lively city and a very lively ground.
It's where Tony Cascarino played as well, isn't it?
Yeah, well, Tony would have played in the old stadium. It's been sort of massively redeveloped. But nevertheless, even the old stadium. And it's only got, roofs on 2 sides, so an awful lot of sound there, because it comes out from the terraces and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But I'd put Wembley above... really, most any stadium in the world, I suppose.
So have you not always said, whenever we've been there, for like certainly an England game, it might be just partly because it's an England game, but the atmosphere sometimes leaves a little bit to be desired. Well, it's not an incredibly sort of tense and exciting place to be.
Well, you say that, but I mean, a lot of that's to do with the corporate facilities in which you're cocooned. But a lot of the time I've been there and I've sat on the broadcasting gantry, which is huge. And it's not a gantry, it's a whole floor right in the top of the stand opposite the tunnel. Yeah. And, I mean, the atmosphere there is fantastic because you get it from right the way around the ground, But it's an endless debate. The ground that most people love most is the one for their own club. Sure. And Goodison has always been great.
Yes, well, not for much longer. Kenny says this. Mike's actually, have you seen Righteous Kill with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro? I don't think I have seen that.
No, I don't think I have either.
And people have mentioned that to me before because there's only a very limited number of situations where you can get those two guys in the same movie.
In the same movie,
One is Heat. One is Godfather 2. Yes. Although, technically speaking, they're not really in the same scenes.
No.
But Righteous Kill, I'm told, is one of the few that they're both in.
Right.
But I don't know how good it is.
We'll have to go and have a look at it sometime. Now then, do you recognise the name? Because I didn't. Min Jin Kim.
Min Jin Kim?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who she is, because obviously 38 years of age, right? And a child prodigy violinist.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a fantastic story knocking around. She's written a short sort of book.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about losing her violin. And it's an amazing story because it was worse than losing her lover, her husband, her boyfriend, her mother, her father. It's the worst thing.
So she's an older woman now?
No, she's 38 now.
Oh, that's what I mean. So she's not a child prodigy still, I mean.
No, but she was a child prodigy when she was sort of 12. And then she got by 11, she'd won an international music competition, started playing professionally all over the world. Yeah. At 15, she became the youngest person to be awarded a foundation scholarship at the Royal College of Music. The one thing she was looking for all her life was a violin with which she could feel at one. You know what I mean? Her and the violin were like an extension of her arm. So at 21... she had known for some time that to reach the very top, she needed a top-class instrument. And she went to a violin dealer because she was a prodigy and a world-famous violinist and said, can you find me a violin? So, anyway, after a few weeks, he rings her and says, I found you a Stradivarius. I mean, can you believe this? Because I couldn't. The violin she played to huge halls in Berlin and, Australia and Berlin, the violin she used, the Stradivarius, was made in 1696.
Yes.
Now, I just can't believe that something made in 1696 is still not fallen to bits and still resonates the sort of sound that you need.
Well, I guess
it's amazing.
If it's a particularly well-made instrument, I mean, one of the reasons they're worth so much money is because they're so brilliantly made.
Yeah, but Mike, that 1700 till now is 317 years.
Yeah.
Plus 4, it's 321 years old.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, imagine if you were trying to drive a 321-year-old car.
But people
it wouldn't work.
Yeah, but people live in houses that are that old, don't they?
Yeah, I know, but a house just stands there. A violin is a moving instrument.
But it's a piece of musical. It's something you make music from.
Yeah,
there's no you could have a piano that was that old as long as it's maintained. Why wouldn't it work?
To me, it was astonishing. I just couldn't believe that old Stradivarius was around 300 years ago.
But he's not around now. So
no,
I mean, like for example, you can't make a Stradivarius now.
Well, somebody surely can imitate how to make a Stradivarius.
But it's not a Stradivarius.
Anyway, this is such a great story, right?
Right.
So she says it was fantastic, and she needed it so much that she sold her house to raise the £450,000 the violin cost.
Right.
I mean, this is an incredible story. Imagine you and I thinking, I tell you what, look, we're going to write a new book. We need a proper pen.
Yeah.
I'm going to flog my house to buy a pen to write a book, okay?
Yes, right.
And the pen will cost me...
I suppose the difference between a Stradivarius and other violins, though, is it sounds so much better.
Yeah, well...
That's what they say.
I couldn't tell the difference between a Stradivarius and a £5 violin because I don't have a musical ear.
Okay.
Anyway, so she gets this £450,000 violin, okay? She said, it was my priority. Nothing else mattered in life. It was my home. In a sense, it was my life. Wherever I was in the world, it was with me. The relationship you have with an instrument like that is difficult to explain. But every time you play it absorbs a part of you. All your emotion seeps in.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is...
Well, that's why she's willing to pay that kind of money for it. Obviously, it's worth more to her, really, than any house.
That's right. So a few years later, the violin is worth £1.2 million.
Right.
The bows that she uses to play the violin alone are worth £65,000.
Okay,
they're carried in a separate case.
And are they made more in a more modern time, or are they also that old?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they came with the violin.
Yeah.
Anyway, she and her boyfriend Matt, a cellist, who she'd been seeing for a few months, were travelling to Manchester, and they were at Euston Station.
Yeah.
Now, amazingly, because she looked after a violin better than a woman looks after a handbag, in the sense that she wrapped the cord around her wrist. Yeah, well, it's worth that much.
Yeah, £1 million worth.
She passes it across the table to her boyfriend at Euston Station when they're on their way to Manchester.
Right.
And she said it was the first time in her life that she hadn't had it next to her, but the cafe they're in was so crowded.
Yeah.
She looked up the next second, it had gone.
No.
And CCTV showed that a marauding gang of probably... itinerant, people who snatch phones off tables and all that kind of stuff, had just taken it. And her life...
They hadn't been stalking her and they didn't know what they were taking?
No, they came in. They were opportunist thieves,
Isn't
robbers.
that horrendous?
So, anyway, both were unaware that 3 men were looking around.
Yeah.
Hunting for what the police call prey, i.e. a phone, a bag or something like that.
Right.
CCTV footage later showed the men training their focus on another unsuspecting woman's handbag, but then they noticed the violin, changed their minds. Neither Min nor her boyfriend Matt saw the hand snaking out to take the violin case.
Wow.
Although it was right beside Matt, the pair, tired and distracted, did not notice.
When did this happen?
This happened, this is part of the story, 4 years ago.
Because I think I remember this story, is the reason I'm asking.
Well, no, I remember one of a violinist woman who lost one on the tube, and she got it back. She got it back within a couple of days. But anyway, she suddenly looked up, and I remember shouting, "It's gone, it's gone, it's gone." Now,
you'd just die of fright, wouldn't you?
Well, she has compared this, at the moment, we're all, observing the Madeleine McCann 10th anniversary and all that. She has actually said it's as bad as that for her, you know what I mean?
Sure it is.
And I mean, perhaps that's a bit tasteless to compare a violin with a child, with a child like Madeleine.
I think people will know what you mean.
But she said people were trying to calm me down. She said I completely lost it. For the next 3 years, she struggled to cope with the loss.
Right.
Her relationship with her boyfriend, Matt, disintegrated. Was that because she blamed him? She said, I didn't know what to think. Blame is too loaded a word.
Yeah.
At the time, I shouted at him, how could you? As though they'd given her child away, you know what I mean?
Right.
He was in charge of my violin. It was stolen from his care. Her management team arranged for other top-class violins to be made available to her, but she could not play them. Someone meaning to be kind did say, look, yours is not the only violin in the world, Min. But to me, it was the only violin in the world. If it had been my child, would people have expected me to accept another child in its place? That's how important it was to me.
And presumably it was insured, but you can't really replace something like that, can you?
She had only got it insured up to £750,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you have to constantly review it
Yes,
and all that.
right.
Anyway, unable to perform, her record deal ended. She simply could not play anything because her violin had gone.
Right.
So she stopped playing.
Yeah.
So her record deal ended. She couldn't sleep or eat. The dark spectre of anorexia, which she, flirted with as a child prodigy, returned.
Right.
She said, whenever I'm stressed, I stop eating. It's not a control thing, it's anxiety, but because I'm an adult now, I can force myself to have something light, but as a child, I was overwhelmed with it, and the fear of it came back. Anyway, her whole life fell to pieces, okay?
Yeah.
Completely fell to pieces, but the happy end of the story is she got it back.
She found it.
4 years later.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
Well, where did it turn up?
Here we go. Sorry, it was a year after she lost it, she got it back. It was 4 years ago, and 3 years ago she got it back. A year after the theft, justice was officially served. Police realised they were dealing with an opportunistic attack rather than a targeted theft. They thought originally somebody had been following her.
Well, because you would think that, wouldn't you? You would think they must have known what they were going for.
Yeah. A guy called John Morn, 30, serial offender with 123 previous offences to his name. He was jailed for 4.5 years for stealing the violin.
Right.
His tour comes 16 years. Where was the instrument, though? That was still a mystery. 3 years after a Stradivarius had been stolen, so sorry, I was right, it was 3 years after.
Right.
She consulted a medium to locate it. In her words, moved into the acceptance part of it. The insurance company had paid out, but she had to pay capital gains tax on the $750,000.
That's mad,
leaving her with only a fraction of what the violin was worth.
Why would you have to pay capital gains tax on that?
Well, because it's such a valuable property, it had increased so much in the time she had it. In July 2013, just after she started to play again with another instrument, and that taken her 4 years to get to there, the police produced a breakthrough. She doesn't know the details, but the violin was found in storage in a warehouse in the Midlands.
That's incredible. Not because you got any help from the medium then.
Well, who knows? Who knows if the medium was able to tip anybody off to go and look at it,
Right.
But, I mean, the most extraordinary thing...
So she's got it back?
Yeah.
And she's playing it again?
No, it's... Sorry. Hang on.
She hasn't got it back?
No. The insurers then took possession of her violin.
Right.
Because the insurance money had been paid out.
Right. So she still hasn't got it?
No, she didn't get it back. Her desperate battle to raise the money to buy it back came to nothing. The violin was sold at auction for £1.3 million, and she didn't have the money to buy it.
Blimey.
It now belongs to a collector.
That's shocking.
What a
terrible story.
What a shocking story.
Yeah. Well, I'll just never play an instrument that's worth that much money, I suppose.
Exactly.
Is the moral of that story.
Exactly.
Incredible.
The casual listener now, music expert, say she still plays like an angel.
Yeah.
She shakes her head and says, no, I don't. I'll never be the same again.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Incredible story.
Amazing.
Coming up next, we'll be telling you what might also drive you to drink and why it's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
We're talking to Dr. Gordon Shepherd. This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
Sport, we are the two Mikes. Got this one from Bolo. So some of Righteous Kill was actually shot in Cardiff, which is quite an interesting kind of juxtaposition since we were talking about that.
Absolutely.
Here's one from Derek in Edinburgh. He says, Yo, Meister. I think he means Porkmeister.
Yes.
Ask old MG how many predictions he wants. He says it's only a few weeks since he was predicting Monaco would win the Champions League.
Exactly.
Hashtag old play. Incorrect, Derek. And what I did say was I thought that Monaco were kind of the dark horse of the tournament.
Yeah, well, that means that you were tipping them for
not really.
ultimate glory.
No, I was tipping them to get far into it, which they have done. They got to the semi-finals.
No, it's the quiz tomorrow night, of course. A few people here saying if Johnny Depp can have an earpiece to make his films, why can't a Porkmeister have an earpiece for the Porkmeister's quiz?
Would you like one?
Well, no, I wouldn't cheat like that, but some are suggesting that I might have done in the past.
Well, presumably you haven't done that in the past.
No, of course not, no.
No, I don't think you'd be able to work that bit out. Now, let's talk to Dr. Gordon Shepherd, because he's got a very fascinating tale to tell us. He's been doing a study over in Yale at the Department of Neuroscience in the Yale School of Medicine about how good wine is for you. Now, you and I would probably have to admit that we like the odd glass of wine.
Yes.
And over the course of the last probably 50 years...
Probably drunk
40 years,
enough
maybe,
to fill the English Channel.
And we've probably had quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
And amazingly, it doesn't seem to have affected us too much.
No.
So let's talk to Dr. Shepherd and find out whether we've been doing the right thing. Dr. Shepherd, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I'd have to say, of all of the pieces of research in all the land, you know, I'm very glad that you've done this one. Tell us about why you did it and what is so good about wine and the brain.
Well, I first gathered the latest results about how we create the flavor of food. And then my editor said, well, why don't you do one for wine? So wine is an example of how we create flavor from what's in our mouth.
Okay.
And you may think the flavor is all coming from your mouth, but in fact, a lot of it is coming from your nose. But you're completely unconscious of it. Nature is tricking you into thinking it's coming from your mouth, and it's all taste, but in fact, most of it is coming from your nose, and that is smell.
Yeah, and also, doesn't it come from your eyes as well, Doc? Because when you look at, for instance, when I look at a glass of French red wine, I know exactly what that has smelt like in the past, and because I'm looking at it, even if I can't actually smell its aroma at the time, I know what, in my brain, what I'm expecting to taste.
Well, you ought to go into science because you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
So that some people say that we eat with our eyes, and that's what you're describing.
Yeah, no.
My mother used to say my eyes were bigger than my stomach.
Well, they always say that, don't they?
Yeah, which is not quite the same thing. But I mean,
that's another way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in as well, though, Dr. Shepherd, is the benefits of drinking wine as opposed to the benefits, perhaps, of drinking other things. It says that the brain creates flavours in the same way that it creates colour, but does it also give you a sort of a tip, if you like, as to what is better for you, if you know what I mean?
Well, I can't comment on that. That's not the kind of research I do. I'm interested in how we create flavor and how flavor then can lead us into healthy eating habits and drinking habits or unhealthy drinking habits. And that can have then disastrous consequences for Alzheimer's disease or diabetes or obesity. So flavor really is something that can play an enormous role in our lives without us fully realizing it.
Yeah, okay, fine. But also in your research, Doc, you say that, a drinker's emotional connection to the wine in their glass has a huge impact on them. Why don't we have some sort of trigger in our brain with all these signals which are telling us what to drink and how it's going to taste? Why don't we have a signal in our brain which tells us when we've had enough to drink, and that would stop people from making fools of themselves by over-imbibing?
Oh, the signals are always there, but what matters in our behavior is the balance of the signals. Some of them are saying, let me have more and more of that, and other signals are telling you less and less of that, and it depends on who you're listening to.
And is there any difference in the different sort of receptors of the brain that people individually have? Because obviously we know people over the years, we both used to work in newspapers, and an awful lot of heavy drinking did go on. Some people could drink an awful lot and become alcoholics. Other people could drink an awful lot and not become alcoholics. Is there anything in your research that tells you how that works?
No, I don't work specifically on that. But what I do work on is the sensory signals that tell us what kind of smell that we're experiencing or creating. And here we know that there are several hundred different kinds of receptors in our nose, and that's a lot. We only have 3 receptors for color, but we have 300 or 400 for smells.
Okay.
And so that means that probably each of us is slightly different in the kinds of smell receptors we have. And while much of it's the same, there are enough individual differences, so that explains why we have different preferences.
I see, fine. Now, Doc, I understand that you are not a huge fan of wine tasting, i.e. taking a mouthful, going the old swoosh, 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 and then spitting it into a bucket. You feel that doesn't have a very beneficial effect on anybody?
No, I think what I said was that you have to be sure to expose yourself enough to the wine so that you're getting the full effect on the effect in the of smell as you breathe out with the wine, either in your mouth or letting a little bit get into your throat so you get the full effect on your nose when you breathe out.
Yeah. So it's, well, bearing in mind that we have specialist doctors called ear, nose and throat experts, all that is interconnected, isn't it? The smell,
it's all interconnected.
The taste, the going down the throat. So, I'm liking your advice. Never spit wine out. Always make sure you put it into your mouth and let it go down your throat, because you can't get the...
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Right.
I said take the wine in, but don't spit it right out, because you won't get enough of... Remember, the taste is not coming from your mouth. The taste of that wine, most of it is coming when you breathe out, with the wine at the back of your mouth and a little bit coming into your throat.
Yeah.
So let a little bit come into your throat so that you get the full effect on your sense of smell.
Yeah, but hang on. Most people who drink wine don't spit it out. They drink it, don't they? It goes down their throat and into their stomach. I mean, you wouldn't advocate that people should change their wine habits by just
tasting?
Just tasting it and spitting it out, would you?
I was talking about if you're at a wine tasting.
Oh, I see.
Where you've got to taste 10 or 20 or 30.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Because it can be a bit dangerous if you start swallowing all of that, because you start to get a little bit too carried away.
Yeah.
So what has this study taught us, as Dr. Shepherd, about what we didn't know before, in terms of, what were you hoping to discover, and did you discover anything that you weren't expecting to discover?
No, I think I went into it realizing that the internal smell has a lot to do with the flavor that we create. And the more I studied it, the more convinced I was that that's something that we're totally unaware of, and yet is one of the main things that determines the flavors of what we eat or what we drink.
Okay. What do you think about saddos who never taste wine, Doc? These people who think that wine is the devil's buttermilk.
Well, it is believed to have some health benefits.
Yep.
And so, as with most things, moderation leads to happiness in all things.
Indeed. Moderation. I agree with
Moderation in moderation.
Moderation in moderation is the theme of this show.
It is very much. Dr. Gordon Shepherd there from
Thanks,
Yale University, from the School of Medicine. He is a good man.
Good man.
He was telling us some things.
Completely right.
He was telling us some things that I think we wanted to know.
Yeah.
He couldn't tell us everything we wanted to know, but never mind. I mean, it's a constant quest for information and knowledge on this show.
Indeed.
Which we will get to some more parts of very shortly. This is TalkSport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. A couple of people have got some funny things to say about your violin story.
Yeah.
How about this one from Simon?
Yeah.
I think you'll appreciate his sense of humour. He says, for 450,000 quid, I would want a violin that at the very least is new.
Yeah. Well, it's 312 years old, which
Yes.
is amazing. But it wasn't 340,000, mate. It's a £1.2 million violin, and for her to buy it back would have cost her 1.3 million.
Well, that's the thing.
From the original cost she paid for it, 445,000. I think it's an amazing story.
It really is quite an unusual story.
But the effect it had on her, this lady, Min Jin Kim, who's a world-renowned violinist.
Yeah, I've never heard of her, funny enough.
No, compared it to losing a child. Yeah. She said, my life was wrecked.
All right. Well, you've already told us all that.
I know, but I mean, what I'm saying is that, people making jokes about it's fair enough and all that, but, you've got to appreciate the seriousness of her dilemma.
Yeah, all right. We don't have to go on about it all for the rest of the show. How about this
from
Nico?
No, I don't agree with you. If people are sending us messages about it, they're very interested.
Well, he's sending a joke message
and
about...
I will respond.
He's sending a joke message about a Stradivarius, saying if you wanted to spend that much money on a violin, you want a new one, which is hardly saying, I feel her pain.
No, well, I think it might have gone over your head, the seriousness of this one.
Nico says this, Porky, you might think MG looks like Jack Nicholson, but have you realised you actually look like linguist George Lakoff?
And you sent a picture of him.
There's a picture of him on this screen that I'm looking at here, but I don't know.
Do you know, I think he looks more like he looks more like Raymond Burr, who played Perry Mason and Ironside. Yeah,
Raymond Burr played Ironside, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, here's a question for you.
Yeah, go on.
Have you been in receipt of any new pound coins recently? You know, the new ones that come out.
Loads of them,
I've seen this story about how the middle bit's falling out of them.
And they're cracking up.
Yeah, apparently. Now, these, first of all, were supposed to be the strongest and most uncounterfeitable coins ever made.
In the world,
It now turns out that people have been making counterfeit versions of them, and it now turns out
the middles are falling
out of them. Now, I haven't had that happen to me, but what a ridiculous situation, considering how much money has been spent on these new coins.
But we did tell our listeners, our millions of listeners, a story the other night when I tried to put a new pound coin in the machine upstairs. upstairs in this building, Talkboat Towers, he wouldn't take it. Now, since then, I learned that the machine has been recalibrated.
Oh, really?
For the new £1 coin. That's why we had a new machine.
Does that mean it won't take the old ones?
No, it still takes the old ones,
okay.
but it's been suggested that the one I was using might have been a fake coin.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't take it.
Well, the problem now, of course, is that I know that you can use a card to pay for parking, but I hate to use a card to pay for parking.
Yes.
Because even if you've previously registered the card at a particular parking plot or spot, it takes forever punching all sorts of things in. So now what I'm having to do, if I'm ever in a situation where I need to pay for parking at a meter of some description, I'm having to have both sets of coins.
Right.
Because you don't know if you've got the new ones, whether they'll go in. Or whether you've got the old ones, whether they'll be any good.
It's amazing.
So it's not good, is it? I'm not happy about it.
Talking about forgery of coins and things, I was talking to one of my people who know all about the gambling industry in Las Vegas.
One of your people?
Yeah, one of my people.
What do you mean, one of your people?
Well, I can't say too much. Can't say too much.
Well, no, I want to know which one of your people.
Well, no, I don't want to get into that. Now, did you know? And the gambling industry is apparently trying to keep this quiet.
Yeah.
That for decades, the casinos everywhere in the world have got to be so on top of any possible cheating in games.
Because you have to believe, as a casino owner, that everyone's trying to cheat all the time.
Of course you do, including the people who are working for you, the staff and everything. So everybody's watching everybody to make sure nobody cheats, okay? And it's always on, they're always looking at marked cards, aren't they? That's the thing that's always been, and, is somebody slipping a card into the pack and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the latest thing that's now emerging, apparently, according to my people, is there's now a huge industry in manufacturing fake and imitation chips.
Fake chips?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that would make sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, not chips that you eat with your sausage and all that.
No, of course not.
The gambling chips,
no,
okay?
but so that you could take them in there and just lose them in the mix.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
or almost launder them, I suppose.
Well, that's right. Nobody's thought about this before. When you go in, and if you go up to the window and you've got $1,000, so you get $1,000 worth of chips, don't you?
Yes.
And you go to the table.
Yeah.
But what's to stop people going in one night, just playing on low stakes, taking a chip out because you don't go back and cash it in?
Right.
I've got a couple of chips at home from visits to Las Vegas. Yeah, just as sort of souvenirs, you know. And then you take them to a master forger and you say, make me $10,000 worth of those. It'd be easy, wouldn't it?
Well, I would have thought so, yeah, because they're not in any way up to the high standards, say, that coins are.
That's what I'm saying.
But I presume they must have some kind of magic thing in them so you can tell they're genuine.
Well, this is the amazing thing, isn't it? Does it? I mean, surely aren't they going to have chip and pin type thing? So if you put your $10 chip onto the, I don't know, the
blackjack table?
Blackjack table is a good example.
Yeah.
And shouldn't something ping to say that's a genuine chip or rejected if
I
it's
would
not?
be surprised if in the current sort of technological world in which we live that they haven't got what you might call smart tables.
Absolutely,
they
that's
would
what I'm saying.
recognise if it wasn't right. Because, I mean, the other thing you could do, rather than just take one away and get another load made, is that if you did have some forgeries, you could just come in and sort of swap them over. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. Okay,
Because if you're playing with fake chips, everything that you win is profit. So everything that you get outside of the fake chips is real and worth cashing in.
Why can't you just walk in with $10,000 worth of fake chips, just walk round a few tables a few times, and then go up to the window
Somebody
and
must have thought of this.
Cash in your fake chips?
Somebody must have thought of this. I was told that there's been a robbery recently of a casino up north where a load of chips were taken.
Right.
So presumably that particular casino would have to say, well, from this point on, we're no longer going to use those chips.
Because people have bought them on the black market and are coming back with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, you see, this is the next great scandal in the gambling world.
This is a fascinating thing that you've uncovered here.
I think I have.
But surely, to heaven, somebody must have thought of doing this. It's not like we're giving them the idea.
It only occurred to me, when this guy told me. I thought, so I went and found my Las Vegas chip. It's from the...
How much is your Vegas chip worth?
It's a $2 chip from the Sands Hotel, which has been knocked down.
The Sands isn't there anymore.
No, exactly.
So it's got Sands written on it.
So Sands written on it, yeah. And I looked at it and I thought, crikey, how easy would it be to replicate that?
Right.
For a master forger, it'd be an absolute doddle.
Yeah.
And in those days, when Sinatra was playing at the Sands and all that, there wasn't the technology around there is today.
Yeah.
There wasn't pin and chip anyway.
No.
Anybody could have made themselves a few $1 million worth of fake chips.
Sure.
Couldn't they?
Because also you would think that now you might actually think about using, say, a smart card, so that when you go to a casino, you would basically go, right, here's your smart card.
Yes.
Here's what you've got, you can put $200 on that.
That's right.
And go and sit down and play poker.
That's right.
Until basically until you've used that up.
That's right.
And then you have to go and put some more money on it.
That's right, and get another one.
But I suppose people like the idea of actually having chips, right?
Yeah, I suppose they do, yeah.
Now, I've got a story here which has been handed to me. British gamblers jailed in Monaco for a casino scam where they cashed in fake chips.
Oh, right, go on.
But are allowed to keep the £2 million they made.
What?
That's amazing.
What?
This is a story from, where are we? From December of 2015.
What's the details on that one?
It says here, 3 British men were jailed in Monaco after they managed to earn £2.7 million in a roulette scam that even left local authorities reluctantly impressed.
Golly.
What they did was they had to pay back $624,000 of their ill-gotten gains, but they were able to keep $2 million.
God. How were they able to keep it?
Apparently,
if they stole it?
They used fake tokens available to buy for €10, which looked exactly like the Monte Carlo Casino's €1,000 chips.
Well, there you go.
How extraordinary.
See, I'm on top of the game here.
And from April 2014 to June 2015, the 3 men won €3.66 million at roulette.
Wow.
And their gambling scam was so successful, the Grand Casino of Monte Carlo started putting them up for free and offering them food on the house when they entered the venue.
Good God.
So they didn't know.
And yet they were robbing them.
Yeah, didn't know they were using fake chips.
Unbelievable.
And some of them have already been banned for life from casinos in London.
Not surprised.
Unbelievable, right? Now, the thing that's interesting about this as well is that because casinos are gambling establishments, is there not a rule of law or a legality situation, which is why they quite often have
You can't sue for a gambling debt.
Well, you can't go after somebody for a gambling debt. So if you can ban them from the casino, or you can put the heavies onto them and threaten to break their knuckles like they do in that film Casino.
That's right.
But there is no legal redress necessarily to getting the money back.
No, I mean, if you're a gambler and you've gambled above your limit or something like that, and you haven't settled it with the casino, you're never going to get a letter from a firm of solicitors, are you, saying you owe £25,000 to this? What happens is, you quite rightly say, you either get banned from life from entering the premises and all those owned by the same proprietor, or you will find that you'll need a mirror on the end of a stick to put under your car every time you want to go out in your own vehicle.
Here's that story there. You can swatch around it as you like. But it's an extraordinary tale.
Absolutely extraordinary.
And all they've done basically is produced a load of chips which look exactly like the ones that were used in the Monte Carlo casino.
Which you would have thought would have been something...
Very secure.
You would have thought somebody would have got onto that one years ago.
Yeah.
See, once again, I'm ahead of the pack.
You are.
Ahead of the pack here, mate.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know where you would go to get chips made, though.
Well, you just go find a forger. A forger who can forge. That can forge anything.
Oh, you say that. Where are you going to find a forger? Well, you're going to walk down the old Bermondsey Market and go, all right, mate.
Well, come on! If you're in the criminal world,
you find a forger.
Well, hang on. In Stalag Luft 3, right, during the Second World War, where they had absolutely no facilities whatsoever, they managed to make forged passports, forged documents written in German.
Well, that was during the war.
Forged keys.
That was during the war.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not the war now, and they've got more facilities.
And everybody knew who Donald Pleasance was back then.
Yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that it's easy to find forgers because forgers are all over the place.
I'll tell you a story. Once Hawkwind, right, came to play at Bath when I was a student there, just after Bath had sort of... Actually, I'd just left the university and my friends were running a sort of Ents company.
Yes.
And they got Hawkwind, right? And Hawkwind refused... The whole crew turned up and they refused to go on stage or do a sound check or put any of the lights or anything up unless they could get themselves something to smoke. Right? They said, we're not doing it unless we get something to smoke, which wasn't tobacco. And I was dispatched off to the local sort of pub to see if I could find something that they could smoke. Right?
So you're legally buying drugs?
No, I was not.
Right,
no, I'm trying to tell you the story, which does not involve that, because that would be against the law.
Yes.
And when I'd managed to rustle up enough, sort of, shall we say, sort of, I don't know, sort of nous, face, anything, to talk to somebody behind the bar about it, and when I put the question to them, like, do you have any idea where something like that might be obtainable? They went, why don't you try the police station? And sent me off with a flea in my ear.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so what were they doing then? They were shopping you?
No, they weren't. No, they were just going, well, why would you walk in here and just ask that sort of question?
But why is that? What's that got to do with forgery?
Well, because if you walk into a place and say, can you tell me where there's a good forger?
Oh, I see.
They're going to say, get lost.
No. Well, I'm saying they're from the criminal underworld, right?
Well, yeah, but where are you going to find the criminal underworld?
Well, if you are of criminal persuasion, you've probably grown up with guys who become forgers.
That's what I'm talking about.
Well, I could find a forger in 5 minutes, yeah.
Where?
What do you mean, where? I would go to where criminals congregate.
Which is where?
Well, you all know where it is. I tell you what.
No, I don't.
Do you remember Waterloo Station just here, right?
Yeah.
Waterloo Station.
Yes.
The great train robber Buster Edwards, after he'd got out after doing his 13 years or something, ran a flower stall outside. If you ever wanted to find a criminal of any persuasion here, it was well known. You went to see Buster, and you say, Buster.
Well, does he still have a flower stall?
No, he hanged himself in a garage around the corner from his flower stall quite a few years ago.
Well, then, there's no much point asking him then, is there?
No, but I mean, that's what people used to do.
Buster?
You go and see people who are known to be within the criminal fraternity.
Yeah, but you don't know where they are.
You do. I would find them.
Where?
Look, we've been journalists. We know where to find villains. I know where to find villains.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at one. This is my worry. This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Matt says this. Doesn't Porky know all the crooks hang around on Hooky Street?
No, they don't actually. But no, look,
Hooky Street.
Hooky Street.
Yeah.
Well, it's the line in Only Fools and Horses, isn't it?
Right. You see,
Down in Hooky Street.
Well, do you remember when we talked about Fools and Horses and Only Fools, and how my knowledge of it is not that great because I wasn't here. Here's another one from Peter who says, drunk loudmouth bum stumbles around train stations looking for the underworld. Sounds like an extremely crap Nick Cage film.
Well, I know for instance, right, that if I wanted to find a villain now and I needed help from the criminal fraternity, I'd go to a place called East Street.
East Street?
Yeah, in Wandsworth.
Okay.
No, not Wandsworth. Where is it?
You mean Whitechapel?
No, I don't even mean Whitechapel. Wool something. It's down past the Elephant and Castle.
Oh, yeah.
Where's that?
You mean Walworth Road?
Walworth Road. There, Walworth
that's
Road.
where the police station is down there.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny enough.
You'd probably find a few crooks coming out of the police station.
Yeah, you would, yeah. Well, there's a big criminal fraternity around there. And there's a place called East Street where they have a market. And I'm told if you ever want to sort anything out, just get down to East Street.
Sort anything out?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
Well, hire somebody to beat somebody up or something like that. Not that I would do.
Why would you know how to do that?
Well, I wouldn't.
Have you ever made any inquiries in that direction?
No, definitely not.
Well, who told you that was the place to go?
Well, somebody just told me.
Just came up in conversation?
Yeah, it just sort of came up. I mean, remember...
So when you said to this person, as it came up in conversation, why are you telling me about this without me actually prompting you?
Exactly.
Why on earth would you think that I would ever want to have somebody beaten up?
Just an interesting conversation.
Really?
I mean, please remember that our current Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, was once allegedly involved in a conversation with an old Eton colleague about, meting out sort of summary justice to people.
Although he was never proven to be
Never proven, and as I say, it's an allegation, but it's been repeated several times.
It has.
But I don't believe it.
No.
So, there's nothing to worry about.
No, that's good.
No, what I was going to say is that I'm quite surprised because people would regard you as quite worldly, quite, and, in mean streets of New York was your patch for 10 years, and yet you profess this total ignorance and total inability to make contact with the criminal fraternity if necessary.
Well, why do you think I'm doing that?
Well, I think you're trying to portray yourself as whiter than white.
Yeah, well, I'm telling you that I don't know where the criminals are, okay?
But you're not. What you're saying is I wouldn't know where to find them if I had to.
I don't think I would, no, because I don't think there's a place that you go.
Hey?
I don't think there's a place that you go. You don't just go somewhere and find criminals.
Look, a situation could arise, say, for instance, this is totally hypothetical, okay?
I mean, you've obviously done some research into this, as
None at all.
many of your situations sort of require, because you may need, from time to time,
not at all.
for people to carry out criminal acts on your behalf.
Hypothetically, totally hypothetically, right? Yeah. And I know you'd never get involved in a situation like this, but a member of your family is having a hard time from somebody who is being a bully and a nuisance to them.
Yes.
You would like them frightened off. So then you would have to go and contact the sort of people who do that for a living.
I see.
Now, you're telling me you couldn't find those people?
No, I don't think so.
Of course you could.
Well, I could probably ask you, I suppose.
Well, no,
Since
no,
you seem to be the expert.
No, it's not that. It's not that. I mean, you know you could because you've done all sorts of things in your journalistic life and found much more difficult people than petty criminals who go around beating other people up.
Certainly, as a journalist, you do know where there are certain things that can be made available.
I mean, for instance...
But that doesn't mean that you have to then tell everybody on the radio all about it.
Well, I'm not telling everyone on the radio.
You're basically telling everyone that you know where to go to get somebody beaten up.
No, I don't.
That's what you said.
What I'm saying is, if anybody ever asked me for advice on where to go, I would be able to help their thinking process.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you're saying that you know where to go.
I mean, for instance, we still know one or two people who work in journalism who have extremely good contacts, not only with the police forces of the world, because that's their job as a crime reporter, but also a lot of villains of the world.
Yeah.
And, we would seek advice there as well.
Sure.
No, old Buster Edwards, I mean, what happened was he did his porridge as a great train robber, and when he came out, he had this flower stall at the back of Waterloo Station.
Yes.
So if you and I were leaving the TalkSport studios here, and we walked through those little narrow streets down Rupel Street...
Yeah, where there's, by the way, some kind of campaign going on, isn't there, to save Rupel Street?
Yeah, well...
Have you seen that?
Yeah, there's a language school there, which looks like a very old-fashioned 1920s primary school.
It does a bit. It's got a sort of bit of a very mini quadrangle-y type look.
Quadrangle thing and an iron fence at the front. And I don't think it's a very good-looking building. Anyway, I've seen some plans to redevelop that into a far more impressive, in my view, block.
Yeah.
Where the front of it, architecturally, is like a load of sort of X's.
Yeah, or sort of diamond shapes.
Diamond shapes and all that kind of stuff. It looks much more impressive.
Yeah.
But as you walk up and down Rupel Street, which, by the way, to everybody concerned, is a very old street in London, built to house railway workers from Waterloo Station in the 18 and 1900s, right? But those cottages that they lived in are now worth £1 million apiece because it's a very trendy road. And all the people living there now say, it's going to ruin our street. It's not. It's going to improve it.
Well, I think it's going to make it look better, yeah.
Do you know all that lot as well have all got these signs in the windows saying, no to the Garden Bridge?
Well, I mean, at one point, no to the Garden Bridge. At one point, I had a tweet sent to me by the campaign to save Rupel Street. I think people realise that we occasionally go down there.
Yes.
Because there's a couple of, hostelries in that neck of the woods, which we like to, visit from time to time.
Yes.
But I don't know whether they expected us to kind of endorse their campaign.
I don't know.
Or not. They didn't ask.
But
we haven't done it.
Didn't ask at all. So if you went down that route to Waterloo Station, in the last bit of the road opposite the, is it the British Forces Club or something on your left? You know that?
I'm not sure.
There's those high steps that go up to that.
Yes, the British Legion or something.
British Legion, right.
Yeah.
On your right, there's a pub, right?
There is another pub, yes.
Right, big pub on the corner.
Yeah.
Now then, in the days when Buster used to run his flower stall, he would go over there for an hour.
What, into that pub?
Into that pub at lunchtime.
It's the Wellington, isn't it, funnily enough?
Well, I think it is the Wellington. It's Wellington.
We may come up with a quiz.
Yeah, indeed. And if you ever wanted to know anything, somebody would say out the side of their mouth at Buster's flower stall, right,
It all sounds a bit cloak and dagger.
No, they'd say, go and see Buster, mate. Where is he? He's out at a pub,
Yeah.
So you go over the pub and you find Buster in the corner, sipping half a bitter or something like that, with a few of his mates, and
what, I mean, from the criminal fraternity?
From the criminal fraternity.
I see.
And Buster would either help you or he wouldn't, depending on what the nature of the inquiry was.
Yeah.
But
there's a great one here from William. He says, Porky's just saved the special branch a lot of work. All they have to do now is keep Porky under surveillance. He'll lead them to everyone they want to find.
No, I do not mix with the criminal fraternity. What I'm saying is
it's no surprise to people listening to this show that you, in your history of criminal acts that you've committed since childhood,
utter rubbish,
you would still be in touch with some of these characters.
No. Honestly, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Brilliant.
It's just, you've provoked me by, putting on this air of stupidity about, how you contact people in the world.
It's not about stupidity. It's about, things that you say on the radio and things that you don't say on the radio.
Well, I'm sorry, but I've not said anything to incriminate myself in any way
Not
at all.
Not at all, no.
I've merely pointed out that, the ability to find those in society with whom you do not normally mix should not be beyond you.
Yes, indeed.
Okay?
Craig says this, Porky's right. My florist can get anything you want. Tulips, roses, violets, everything you like.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Now, here's one for you, because do you know when we appeared on Sky TV not that long ago, people were making remarks about the fact that we both wore black suits.
Indeed.
Well, according to what I can only regard as a sort of upmarket fashion journal, as you would call it, black suits are making a comeback this summer.
Really?
So how about that? So
I've just bought a new black suit.
Well, there you are. Black used to be reserved for funerals, formal evening wear, or perhaps a board meeting. Apparently now they are the thing to wear for when you're out and about in the summer.
Well, I've been wearing black suits for years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all I wear is black suits. I don't have any other suits.
That's not true.
No, it is
You've
true.
got a blue suit.
No, I haven't.
You have?
I've got a blue jacket. I've not got a blue suit.
Well, I've seen you in a blue suit. I'm sure I have. We've gone to a football match together.
I can assure you haven't.
Really?
All my suits are black,
Okay. Which black suit did you buy?
Bought a very expensive one.
From where? Is it from the Italian shop?
It's from an Italian outlet inside Debenhams.
So it's a Debenhams suit?
No, it's not Debenhams suit.
Well, what's the make?
Make?
What's the label say?
Label?
Yeah.
Something like Francisciona.
It's not a knockoff from one of your criminal mates. I'll just bring the just bring the van round.
No. It says Francisciona or something like that. Yeah, something like that. It's some Italian fashion house anyway.
It's not Ferragamo.
Hey?
Not Ferragamo, is it?
Oh, I don't know. It might be.
It won't be that.
Who sell their suits in
around the back of that scene in Goodfellas. Just go down there.
No.
We've got some new coats.
This is
down there.
This is what is called
just around there.
A concession inside Debenhams, which is one of the most respectable stores in the country.
Really?
Yes.
This is Talk Sport.
Okay.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Absolutely brilliant.
Or maybe now that we've been examining The Godfather, you would say, was it really a gangster film or was it something else?
Yeah, was it something else? I think it was the big screen debut for Helen Mirren.
Yeah.
That's her first leading role, really.
Was it?
As girlfriend to Bob Hoskins.
Yeah. I don't know, but I mean, certainly as a gangster's mole, maybe. But I mean, she'd been around before that, hadn't she?
No, not much. And of course, the eyes in the mirror in the Jaguar in the very last scene were those that belonged to Pierce Brosnan, who later became James Bond, of course. Yeah.
Andy says this, and he's got a picture as well. The Hatton Garden robbers got nicked because one of the guys drove his own fastback Merc on day 2 of the effort.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
and there it is, a picture of it there, the white one.
That's right, trapped by a CCTV camera. And in fact, when I get round to telling you all about Line of Duty, so much of your movement in this country, it's illustrated through all these cop shows, right?
Yes.
Are traceable on cameras in this country. We've got more cameras in this country than anywhere else in the world.
That's true.
And they can track a car they can track a car from London to Manchester easily.
Well, do you know, I wanted to ask you about this sign that I saw on the A21.
Oh, yes.
Which is a sign that read something. It was a yellow and black sign, right? So it was black writing on a yellow background.
Okay.
Police white line cameras. Now, what does that mean to you?
A white line camera?
Yeah, or white line video or something like that.
I don't know. What's
I
that?
assumed that it meant that they were filming parts of the road, because stretches of the road which are sort of rural, you would say.
Yeah.
But they've got, those roads where they've got in the middle, they've got a dotted white line.
Yes.
But in the middle of the dotted white line, there's also further white lines, like sort of chevron. I wonder if it means that they're filming to see whether people are overtaking when they're not meant to be. Don't
know.
But I don't know what it meant.
Oh, I don't know what that means.
Because I didn't see any cameras on the road. It's not normally a stretch of road that's got cameras on it.
I think more interestingly, David, our producer, told us about a sign that's appeared very near to where I told you old Buster Edwards had his flower stall, right?
Yeah.
And it's a sign which is telling people, not to give beggars money.
That's right. Please don't give money to beggars.
Yeah, a big electronic sign, apparently.
Yeah, right.
Now, just to paint the picture here, that's a stretch of road which has got at least 3 mini supermarkets.
It has.
Tesco, Sainsbury's, and another one.
And an M&S, I think.
Is it an M&S? Yeah, I think you're right.
Funnily enough, it's not the place where you got a parking ticket because you parked on the wrong side of the bus stop.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But it's also a place where one night, which was quite shocking, I went in, I stopped there on the way home, so it would be about, 4:15 a.m.
Yes.
So I went in there and got a loaf of bread.
Oh, yeah.
And some sausages. Because I fancied sausage butties for breakfast.
Sausage butties, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's the sort of place you always, if you've got a fancy for something at that time of the morning, that's where you go and buy it.
That's right. So I come out, and then a lout, a sort of a low-life, filthy, scumbag human being lout, was loitering in a shop window. And I thought, I'll keep my eye on him. And as I clicked my clicker to open the door, but I was standing right by the door, he sprinted across the pavement and got in the car before me.
Into your car?
Into the passenger door,
No.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
You didn't tell me this.
I know, I don't know why.
Happen?
Oh, about a year ago.
Right.
Yeah, about a year ago.
What, he got in your car?
He got in my car. And I opened the door and I said, hey, and I you never know this guy's got a knife.
You're on the driver's side?
I'm on the driver's side.
Okay.
And I used really foul language, and went mad.
Right.
And
did you not go round? Did you go round and open the door and tell him to get out, or what?
No, because he'd got in but not closed the door.
Oh, I see.
So I got in and I started flailing my arms around, and said, hey, and all this kind of stuff.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, he was off his rocker.
Right.
But he just tumbled himself back out again and ran off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean...
did he not leave the door open?
He did leave the door open.
So you had to get out and shut it, or did you reach across?
No, you can't reach across. It's too wide. I then had to go round and shut it. Yeah. But the first thing I did was inspect the seat to make sure this filthy scumbag...
soiled it.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't have sort of, like gin stains on his coat or something.
This is why it's better to have a car where when you click the door, only the driver's door opens.
Well, that's right.
Rather than every other door.
That is right, yeah.
Which is what mine does.
Yeah,
if I click my driver's door open, if I need to open a passenger door, I have to click it twice.
Yes.
So somebody couldn't do that.
No, that's good. Except that I think what happened in mine is I think it does that until you open your door and that opens the other door. Freeze the other door anyway, But no, so that's not a nice part of the world. It's at the back of Waterloo Station, but I didn't know it had got that bad.
I think it is pretty bad around there.
Yeah, we've got to keep an eye on it.
Because, of course, and probably the reason for the sign is that most of the guys who are begging there are what you might call professional beggars.
Yeah.
They're not people that are in need necessarily of sandwiches.
No, that's
if
true.
If you try and give them food, they don't want it. Yeah. They only want your money.
Yes, that's right. But, of course, I'm very reluctant to help down and out on the streets anymore. Since that time when I did help a chap, by not giving him money, but by buying him cigarettes and food.
You bought him fish and chips, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. And all I got was
and then you got
terrible criticism
on Twitter because you were showing off.
I wasn't showing off.
Why did you have to take a picture of it?
I didn't. I didn't say what I was trying to say was I was saying, look, you can help people on the streets, but you don't have to lavish great amounts of money on them.
Right.
Try this. The guy smokes, so here's a pack of cigarettes. Guy's hungry, here's some fish and chips. This is the way you might want to approach our homeless problem in this country. I was trying to be instructive.
Really?
And I was trying to be helpful. And also got a load of abuse saying, you're taking advantage of a down and out.
Well, I mean, you did.
I wasn't taking advantage at all.
Well, you could have done it without telling anyone, couldn't you?
Well, no, because the whole idea is that, look, if the old Portmeister can do it, we should all do it. I lead from the front all the time.
How about this?
Yeah.
From Peter, who's casting some aspersions on you as a criminal mastermind. He says, as usual, Porky bases his knowledge on the very limited amount of bad films that he's seen. He's more Fredo than Don Corleone.
No, that's very nice, isn't it?
I know what you did.
I know what you did.
Yeah.
Now, I want to read you a letter in the Thunderer today.
Oh, yeah.
Which was sent to me in a tweet by, an adoring fan, so to speak.
An adoring fan?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's how you wish to portray them?
Eh?
Are you sure that's how you wish to portray them? An adoring fan?
Well, somebody who clearly a follower of the show, put it that way, okay?
Right. It's to the Times.
This is a letter written to the Times, which I took a photograph of and tweeted to me.
Right.
Now, the Times did a big feature earlier this week about people who've got to 50 and are still single, mostly women, who now have great careers and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But they didn't concentrate on men. Right. So a chap called Stephen Brown, who is a resident of Leeds, writes to the Times and he says this. Dear Sir, apropos your report, 50 and still single, blame your parents. So the whole theme of the feature, which I saw, was that, you've been so dominated by your parents all your life that you weren't able to...
Or you're following in their footsteps.
Yeah, following their footsteps. You weren't able to establish your own identity and all that kind of stuff. So it says, 50 and still single, blame your parents.
Yeah.
May I just tell you about my own situation? I am male, I'm 64, I've never been married or cohabited, and I am completely heterosexual.
Yeah.
My father was 19 years older than my mother,
right,
and they were very happily married for 42 years until my father's death. I simply have not found the right person who I wanted to marry.
Yeah.
My late mother used to say that I was too particular and too fussy with my girlfriends.
Yes.
She may have been right, but I never found the right person, although I have not yet given up hope.
Right.
Stephen Brown from Leeds.
Well, good luck to you, Mr. Brown.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is, that's what I've tried to explain to you over the years.
What's that?
That I would not get forced into a marriage I didn't want to be involved in just to conform with society's view of the nuclear couple, the nuclear family.
Do you think that's what everybody else does?
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people do.
I think a lot of people think they need to be married.
That's what I'm saying.
I think a lot of people feel the need to be married to have children.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to have children.
Yes.
I suspect a lot more women than men want to have children. Because men, I don't think, generally speaking, think about that kind of thing.
Yeah, they don't have, the maternal instinct because they're paternal.
Not really. I'm always slightly suspicious of any man who says, I really want to have children.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
But, it's not generally speaking what drives men, is it?
Yeah, no, I agree.
No, I think that had you been less driven by your career, you might have ended up living with women more than you did.
I might have done.
But I mean, the fact is you were always driven by your career.
Yeah, but not only that,
so you weren't on the lookout for a woman, really, were you? I mean, all the women that you ended up being with kind of came to you as a result of your career.
Yes, that's right.
You didn't actually physically go and try and find a woman.
No, but the crucial factor with me is I've never loved a woman enough to want to marry her.
Well, you never loved anyone more than you love yourself, have you?
No. You see, you're being trite there. I'm trying to be serious here.
Why are you trying to be serious?
Because I'm trying to,
What's happened to you?
Open up as an open book and all that kind of stuff. And the point is, what I'm telling you is.
Yes.
Millions of men have married women they didn't love.
Yes.
Because they thought, hang on, I'm getting to such an age now, or society's putting pressure on me, or all my friends are married, so I should be.
Some families put pressure on people.
Families put pressure on you and in certain situations.
I mean, all right, if you're being serious, let me ask you a serious question.
Yeah.
I mean, have you never had pressure put on you by your parents before you saying, are you ever going to provide us with any grandchildren?
Never.
They never did that?
Never.
Because a lot of people I know have had pressure from their parents to say, when are you going to provide us with some grandchildren?
Yeah, sure. Well, my sister has 2 children. They're grandchildren to my mother, who's my
So that may have
parent.
taken a bit of the pressure off you.
Taken pressure off. But people have said, isn't it odd that, you got to your age and never got married? I think it's very odd that society doesn't look at the other side of the coin, which is, but millions of people get married because it just suits...
And for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. It just suits their social standing, I want to get married because I want to buy a house and I need somebody to live in it with and, maybe have children. And that's completely the wrong reasons because that marriage... I keep saying, has a great possibility of ending up as a broken marriage with all the social problems that brings to the people in concern, the children, the wife and all that.
Yeah.
If you don't want to get married, I don't feel that you should have to just say, look, I better conform to society's rules and get married here because people might think I'm odd that I live in this big house, but I live on my own.
But you've also been fortunate, I suppose, in the sense that you could choose that lifestyle because you've got enough wherewithal, you've had a reasonably interesting job, you haven't had to live in a community of people who have all been the same.
It's true. It's true.
So you've been able to make that choice.
It's true. And I've never, and I'm talking really now more about women than men, I've never sought a partner in life as part of my financial structure.
No.
If you see what I mean.
No.
Because without a shadow of a doubt, 2 people can live cheaper than one. If you're...
I mean...
They can.
If both of them are working, you certainly can do better, I suppose. But
but I mean, what I'm saying is, if 2 people get together, they only need one house. Whereas if you've got 2 single people who've got 2 separate houses...
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened to loads of people. 2 young people meet, they've each got a flat.
Yeah.
They say, look, we don't need 2 flats now. Flog that one, that'll give us something to live on. We'll buy a bigger flat.
There's some truth to that.
So 2 people can live cheaper than one.
Yeah.
So some people conform to society's rules to become a member of a couple for that reason alone.
Yeah. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, that was a very fascinating insight into your world.
Well,
I apologise for being trite.
No, but that's thanks to Mr. Stephen Brown of Leeds, who wrote to the Times to explain his position. Right. And he's a lot older than me, by the way. He's 64.
Not much older than you.
He's 64, and he says I haven't given up hope. So when I said I discontinued the First Mrs. Parry list 2 years ago, because I felt that it was a stage of life now when I shouldn't.
Kick it off again.
Well, who knows?
Really?
Who knows? The FMP.
I'm getting very worried about you.
The FMP could make a revival.
I'm getting very worried about you. There's something happening to you.
No.
I don't know what it is.
No, it's not.
This is Talk Sport.
As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
That music can only mean one thing. It is, of course, time for Porky Vision. It is the same time every week. Some people say that it's the best TV review this side of Ulaanbaatar.
That's right.
Others are sometimes baffled by some of the things that you say.
You've got to get real and not be baffled. You know what I mean?
You have issued a previous warning earlier in the week to say that if you haven't seen Line of Duty by now, and especially the closing part of the show of it, then you won't want to listen to this because it will be too revealing.
And do you know what? Amazingly, before I saw the last episode of the current Line of Duty, I found in my Skybox, sort of library type thing, the last episode of the last Line of Duty show.
Really?
I don't know why. Somebody must have said to me, have you ever seen it? I said, no. And
had you not seen the previous series then?
No, I hadn't. And yet there were things in the last episode of the last series which connected to this one.
Right.
And that is that most of them end up with armed police smashing their way into some house or in some office or something like that.
Right.
And then, a great standoff between armed people,
Right.
But in this one, what was brilliant is that DCI Ros Huntley, who, of course, was played by the brilliant actress, Tandy.
Tandy, yes.
Tandy.
Yeah.
What's her name? Tandy what?
Tandy Newton.
Tandy Newton, that's the one, yes.
Former Bond girl.
Former Bond girl, that's right, yeah. Brilliantly. And the moment of the whole series is when she is sitting in a room actually being interrogated, by AC-12, that's Anti-Corruption 12, who have suspected from the start that she's been trying to frame a young, sort of mentally subnormal boy for a series of murders because she was being pressurised by the Assistant Chief Constable from above and saying, you've got to get results, and she had no qualms about framing this poor kid. She suddenly says... I wish to confess to the murder of the guy who was the forensics expert.
Oh, really?
In the first episode.
Right.
When she went round to his house and say, look, lay off my case, will you? You're producing too much forensic evidence. Yeah. And because he suspects she's framed the kid.
Right.
They start pushing each other in the kitchen. She gets pushed over. Yeah. He thinks he's killed her and he's going to cut her up. And she wakes up. Now, what I don't quite understand here, so basically that's the plot. Yeah. So from the start, she frames a kid for a series of murders committed by Balaclava Man.
Okay.
She says...
I've read about him.
She says he's Balaclava Man. The forensic expert, examining all the pictures, says... That can't be this kid cannot be Balaclava Man. Right. His physical presence does not
He's not the right shape.
Well, he does things like he's got more equipment than her. Right. And I can see his feet don't even match the footprint sizes of the attacker. Right. She says, how can you tell? We haven't got pictures of his feet. He says, I know, because I've been able to study body forms and all that kind of stuff. Uh-huh. So she goes round to his house and says, I want you to lay off. He has got his own dark secrets. Yeah. He has prostitutes around to his house and all this kind of stuff. Right. Yeah,
so there's a struggle.
There's a struggle. She gets pushed over. Right. He thinks she's dead. Right. Then the amazing twist at the end of that series is that just as he's about to take a circular saw and start cutting her up, her eyes open. Yes. And then the start of the next series is that he's dead and she's not. Right. But 3 of his fingers are missing.
But, I mean, it's odd as well that he would want to kill her, having just maybe caused her accidental death.
Well, that's unexplained. Yeah. That's unexplained. No, you mean chop her up.
Chop her up,
after... Yeah.
I mean, rather than say, look, we had a struggle.
We had a struggle.
He's a police officer. Well, it's not my fault.
Who knows what dark secrets are about? Yeah. Because this is what is so interesting. She then she goes through the rest of the 6 episodes with a sore on her arm, which gets worse and worse and worse. Right. And in the end, I explained last week, she had her arm chopped off by surgeons because it turned out she got MRSA. Yes. But where did she get MRSA from? The guy that she killed, the forensic expert who was sitting astride her with a circular saw, she pushed the circular saw away, it's revealed, nicked his jugular vein, and he bled to death, okay? So,
well, that would be a bit messy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but before he died, because he was a forensic expert, he scraped her skin with his fingers.
And is that how the cut came about?
Well, this is what is so interesting. She then cut those fingers off and took them away because she knew. But what he'd done is, this is a line which I find remarkable. He had inflicted upon her MRSA from his fingernails. Yes. And... I know this sounds ridiculous, but MRSA lives in all our noses.
It does.
Right?
No, that's true. I mean, people say that it is all around us.
Right. Well, the only thing you can take from that is that for some unknown reason, he'd put his finger in his nose because he was a forensic expert and then scraped her skin. Right. Deliberately. Okay. Right? Yeah. To
take some presence of mind, that. Well, you're having your fingers chopped off.
Well, no, his fingers hadn't been chopped off then. She'd slit his jugular.
Oh, I see.
He was dying.
Well, even then.
Yeah, and he's thinking, well, no, because I remember seeing in some Columbo series when a guy got locked into a safe and died of lack of oxygen and all that. Right. The last thing he did was leave clues, as to who the killer was.
He wasn't bleeding to death, though,
No, he wasn't bleeding to death, but he was suffering from oxygen deprivation. Yes. So, but anyway, the point of the story is... This is how she got the wound, and she wouldn't go to the hospital because then they'd say, well, where'd you get that? And then she'd have to explain. Yes. So anyway, she covers up all...
She just said she scratched herself or something.
She said she scratched herself on brickwork.
Oh, yeah.
So they never treated it with anything except a bit of Germolene, you see. Right. So anyway, she's sitting there, and she suddenly realises that the world is closing in on her through... evidence which AC-12 have got against her, i.e. the movement of her car and all this kind of stuff.
And did nobody know that his last sort of movement was to go to her house, to visit her, before...
She went to his.
Oh, she went to his house.
She went to his. He was found on the floor of his own kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Right, okay.
Right.
So she realised... Now, this woman is so driven that, she didn't want her career to end by being exposed as a criminal. So she then set up her own husband,
right.
Lee Ingleby's the actor, the guy who was in Inspector Morse.
Okay.
Bacchus. He played Bacchus in Inspector Morse.
Is he the one who's being called the most unlikely sort of sex symbol? Is he the same guy?
Yeah, I don't know.
He was a big piece in one of the papers the other day.
Oh, no. That is the head of AC-12.
Oh, okay.
A guy called Hastings.
That's another bloke.
Who's played by the actor Adrian Dunbar, okay?
Okay.
But, but she is so wicked now that she has actually called the police to arrest her husband, who she says is Balaclava Man.
Right.
And it wasn't her fault. They arrested this mentally subnormal boy,
right.
who by now has been cleared because they found out that body parts that were distributed by Balaclava Man, the killer, were distributed when he was in jail.
While he was in custody,
Yeah, so he was there. So she's now framed her husband, who's a complete wimp and, crying in his cell, it wasn't me.
Yes.
And she's telling all her officers it was him. It's only, it's my fault. I was married to him. I should have noticed, Right. But in fact, it wasn't. Meanwhile, she's having some sort of affair with the ACC. This is the man at the top. Now, some of the strange things that have happened here is that she then admits, I killed a forensic expert,
yes.
right? Her venal boss is called Derek Hilton. This is the ACC. Right, played by an actor called Paul Higgins, right?
Yeah.
And the weirdest thing is, he has been aware of several setups within the whole of the police force that he controls. And we still don't know why, because she confesses, and she is then taken away with her one hand, one arm.
Right.
And then they go after him because she says that the pressure was put on her by the ACC.
Right.
But when they find the ACC,
yes,
he's put a gun to his head and blown his own brains out down near the yacht club.
All going a bit wrong, isn't it?
All going a bit wrong. But we have not yet been told why he did, although there was a suggestion he may have been involved in covering up very senior people from sort of paedophile charges and this sort of thing, which is very reminiscent of a real-life case that we've been reading about in London over the last 2 or 3 years involving people like, allegations against people like Cyril Smith and that sort of thing, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's all about that, whether he's been protecting the establishment
Historic
at the top.
Stuff, yes.
Historic stuff, because even the government officials have been coming to him saying this must not get out under any circumstances.
Right.
And so using his senior power, he's been directing, anti-corruption people to the wrong people and all this kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
But the one thing I don't quite understand, which is yet to be... Oh, and by the way, some new guy who was introduced into the squad just a couple of episodes again, suddenly pulls a gun and tells everybody to stand back.
Right.
And everybody's thinking, you've gone mad, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And he says, you don't know half of it, you don't know. We think that the very senior guy has sent him into the squad as his own man and told him a pack of lies about all the rest being corrupt. So pull a gun on them. So it's all very complicated.
Right. So Balaclava Man, we still don't know who that is.
Yeah, we do. This is all explained. So anyway, what happens is there's then a raid on the police headquarters itself.
Right.
By 2 Balaclava men.
Right.
So there's more than one.
Right.
Balaclava Man turns out not to be one person.
There's more than one of them.
There's more than one of them. There's a criminal network somewhere which is trying to manipulate establishment agencies, including the police, right?
Yes.
Who have got more than one Balaclava Man. And so the Balaclava Man that beat up a detective from AC-12... inside...
Could have been one of many.
It could have been one of many.
Right.
And they blow one away in the last series, I think it's Adrian Dunbar, who is the Hastings, the head of AC-12.
Well, he's the one that kills the Balaclava
I think he
Man.
kills Balaclava Man with a very clever shot.
Yeah.
Because Balaclava Man is holding a gun to a hostage's head.
Okay.
But Hastings just picks up another gun, points it and bang. And
don't they do the old reveal, though, when they lift the Balaclava
they do,
up to
but
see who it is?
It's an anonymous man. This is the point.
Oh,
he's not a character that we've known throughout the series, okay?
Right.
But the most amazing thing is, she confesses, yes, I did kill him. She said it was an accidental. And they all say, what? A forensic expert was sitting astride you with a circular saw.
Yeah.
She said, yeah, and he thought you were dead. She said, yes. He said, but he's a forensic expert.
Yeah.
She said...
And why was he trying to kill her? Surely that would be the question.
Why was he trying to cut her up? He thought he'd already killed her, you know.
Well, yeah, why would he want to kill her in the first place, though?
Well, it was an accident. There was a pushing match in the kitchen, and she fell and banged her head.
Right.
But she then corrupted all the evidence of the blood in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But she said, I don't know. She said there is a state in which you can actually not have a pulse for 10 minutes but still be alive, you know what I mean? And she suddenly woke up. But what I don't understand is she confessed to accidentally killing him, but was then charged with manslaughter. Now,
right. Well, that's kind of follows, doesn't it?
No, because if you're lying on a kitchen floor and there's a bloke sitting astride you with a circuit saw about to cut you up, and you go push off, and you literally push his hand away, and the saw then cuts his jugular.
Well, that's still manslaughter.
That's self-defence.
Well, no, it's manslaughter.
No, it's not. It's self-defence.
It's manslaughter
because he's trying to cut her up and therefore kill her.
Well, murder is a preordained killing.
All right, well, hang on. So I just come over to you now, where you are. I knock you to the floor.
Yeah.
I sit astride you, get a circular saw. I start thinking I'm going to cut you up. You wake up, punch me in the face.
Yeah.
And I then cut my jugular.
Yeah.
That's self-defence. That's not manslaughter.
Well, no, it's still manslaughter. The difference is that you didn't go out to kill me.
Yeah.
You didn't plan to kill me.
I don't think
you
it is.
killed me as a result of your actions. That's manslaughter.
I don't think so.
Anyway,
she then gets 10 years because they do captions at the end saying what happened to everybody, right? She gets 10 years, but the 10 years are for manslaughter and perverting the course of justice.
Yes.
My view is she would have got a lot more for perverting the course of justice because it was such a huge perversion of a police case, and she's, a very senior officer.
Yeah.
And probably will only got 2 years for manslaughter because of the circumstances.
Maybe possibly.
Or something like that. We still don't know why the ACC blew his brains out.
Yeah.
And some of the other officers in AC-12... were so shocked by it all that they went into,
But we still don't know who the balaclava man or several balaclava men were.
They were just hired gunmen.
No.
They weren't even characters in the plot.
Okay.
They were sent out to do things by a criminal mastermind who was being protected by the ACC, who's blown his brains out.
So he is as yet unknown.
As yet unknown, and his motives as yet, but we think that what he had on the ACC was... You've been protecting establishment figures for years. I know. I've got you. I'm blackmailing you.
So will this come out in the next series?
Well,
then?
This is what you think.
Right.
But
so
brilliant series.
There's still a lot that we don't know then.
A lot we don't know.
So, in fact, you haven't really given too much away, apart from the fact
I've given away everything that's been on telly.
Have you?
And with my own theories about it, because, I've tied up a few loose tales, a few loose ends, which the scriptwriters didn't,
No, but given the fact that it's not absolutely sorting everything out, that leaves plenty of room for manoeuvre, I would say.
Room for manoeuvre. The forensic expert was a guy called Tim Ifield, by the way.
Okay.
And it was brilliant. What I do notice in all the police series that we see now, and the other great programmes we're on this week is Little Boy Blue.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very hard to watch. The funeral at Liverpool Anglican Cathedral of Rhys Jones, which attracted thousands of people, carried up the church in an Everton coffin, in his Everton clothes and all that kind of... Very, very hard to bear. But that, too, involved several... incidents where armed police... There's a lot of armed police in television these days.
Well, there's a lot of armed police on the streets.
With these short-barrelled machine guns, which they hold right up to their eye, you know what I mean? While another copper's smashing the doors down. That is happening more and more frequently in Britain. I'm telling you.
It's happening all the time. You see police officers in London an awful lot now with those kind of weapons.
Yes.
And I'm rather glad about it, to be honest. That was Porky Vision.
Indeed.
If you haven't seen the end of the show, don't worry about it, because there's still plenty of questions left to be asked.
Certainly are.
This is Talk Sport.
Yes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Today you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train.
This is Talk Sport, and we are the Two Mics. Tomorrow, of course, we will be doing the Porky quiz, and it's going to be on Wellington. In a very historical manner. How about this from Craig? He says, Porky, I'm planning a blag. I've got the inside guy. I need a safe man, a driver, some muscle, and a fall guy in case it all goes wrong. Help.
The driver's known as the wheels, right? Okay, got to find yourself a wheels man, it is said. And also, every major crime has a guy who is known as the scanner, who is the guy who, goes and plots it all out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, for instance, if you and I were going to do a jeweller's or something like that, you would...
You see, this slips off your tongue with great ease if you were going to go do a jeweller's. I don't want to be associated with this kind of talk.
No, but one of us would go in there looking very suave.
Taste the joint,
that's right, in your new black suit and all that kind of stuff, and then sort of walk up and down the street, find out how many alarms there were, how many cameras were, all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, the planning is like anything, proper planning prevents poor performance.
Indeed.
See what I mean?
Yes, or prepare to fail. What is it? Fail to prepare, prepare to fail.
That's right.
Something like that. Absolutely. Jeff says this: Porky's missing the point. Ross got manslaughter because Ross did not report the crime and hide the evidence.
I see. Okay, well, that's a good explanation.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, when she woke up and then... Yes, I see. So instead of then ringing up her colleagues and saying, look, you better come, there's a body here.
Right.
She decided to clear it all up herself.
Yes.
And,
which is suspicious, isn't it?
Very suspicious, but she didn't dispose of the body.
No.
I mean, the body was left on the kitchen floor.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
I suppose she covered up the fact that there had been effectively a killing.
That's right, yes.
That she made out that he had just somehow died at the hands of something else.
No. He had definitely died at the hands of somebody else because somebody cut his fingers off. So,
yes, but that was not her.
No, well, again, you see, she tried to frame the cleaning lady.
Right.
Cleaning lady was a part-time prostitute, okay?
Right. Part-time?
And this guy had met her in a local cafe where she served teas, but had a little card saying cleaning lady, which was a cover for prostitution.
Sounds like that Brazilian woman that you talked about.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. It's £30.
Now, how about this for a story, right? Because we don't quite know exactly what the scenario is. A couple of people mentioned this earlier. Yeah. We've been trying to check it out. Yeah. But a couple of news outlets are publishing a story at the moment saying that there's a highly unusual emergency meeting being called at Buckingham Palace later on today. And there's a lot of speculation about what it could be about.
Right.
Because apparently the entire household of the Queen's sort of staff have been called to this meeting, which includes people coming from as far away as Sandringham, from Balmoral, and other parts of the country.
Really? So it's like if it was a company, it'd be a mass board meeting?
Something like that, yeah. They appear to have been summoned by Sir Christopher Geit, who is the senior officer of the royal household, who says that he's going to address them. Now, I mean, it could be absolutely nothing at all. Yeah. Buckingham Palace are not actually issuing any kind of formal acknowledgement that this is even happening.
Yeah.
They are not issuing a statement of any kind. But what the story is saying is that basically servants from royal residence across the country have been ordered to be in London to be addressed by the Lord Chamberlain, who is the most senior officer of the royal household.
Well,
now, the
first line of speculation will be abdication by the Queen.
Yes, but that sounds as though it's very unlikely. People are saying that it's unusual timing for that sort of thing to go on.
Well, with an election coming up in this country.
Also, the fact that the Queen has always said that she would serve pretty much until the end of her life.
Yes, that's right.
There is speculation about the Duke of Edinburgh as well, but he was out, I think...
he was at Marylebone Cricket Club today, the MCC at Lord's, cutting a ribbon on a new development there. Right. He looked perfectly healthy.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
Others are saying it could be something like Prince William and his wife are thinking of coming back to London rather than...
Well, they've already announced that they're going to move back into apartments at Kensington Palace.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, because they are officially based at the moment at Sandringham.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so to rebase back into London full time could be. What about if Kate's having another child? Would that mean them all getting together?
That might have some resonance. It's very difficult.
What about if Harry is about to announce his intention to marry Meghan?
Yes, that could possibly be the case as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of speculation going on, and you remember from the days of Fleet Street.
Absolutely.
You would have certain tipsters who would know things.
Absolutely.
We haven't been able to find anything out from any of those people, more specifically than what are the current pieces of speculation. They're calling it a very highly unusual step.
My bet would be Harry.
Yeah?
Harry
I think that's
he's going to get married.
That's very possible.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Kate having another baby wouldn't facilitate a mass gathering of all the royal officials, but Harry getting married would, without a shadow of a doubt. I don't believe the Queen will ever abdicate. I think she sees it as a duty to serve till the end.
Yes.
The Duke of Westminster doesn't look as though he's in frail health to me.
Yeah. Duke of Edinburgh, you mean?
What did I say?
Duke of Westminster.
Oh, sorry, no, the Duke of Edinburgh. So it's a bit difficult to fathom out what it could be.
And it might not be necessarily, if it was to do with Harry's engagement, if that is indeed what's happening, it wouldn't necessarily be to announce that. It might just be to tell the staff that it's going to be announced.
That's what I mean.
At some point in the future.
And to plan it.
Yes.
To plan it,
Because I don't think she's in the country at the moment, is she?
Well...
Meghan?
she's a sort of... She's an international actress and model, so she could be anywhere, couldn't she?
She could, yeah. But I'm pretty sure I saw pictures of her in L.A. over the last few days.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Anyway, so we can't really tell you anything at the moment. We'll try and fill you in on more once we know clearly throughout the course of the day what it is.
But because, because our antennae are up, we felt we should alert the millions of listeners to this radio station first.
Yes.
So we can justifiably say tomorrow night, you heard it first here.
Exactly
okay?
right, yes.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
Yeah.
Keep your tweets coming in, of course. We've got lots and lots of those. You can tweet them at the two Mikes, at Mike Parry 8 and at IROMG. Tonight, of course, it's Manchester United playing Celta Vigo, as you know.
That's right.
The team that are in the northwest of Spain.
That's right.
Where it's very wet. Apparently they have even more rainfall there, actually, than we have here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Where's this?
In Celta Vigo, northwest Spain. Galicia.
Yeah, now, can I tell you something which happened in the business world?
You can.
My old friend, Adam Crozier.
Oh, yeah.
Who is
he's now head of the post office, isn't he?
No.
ITV.
Exactly. He left the FA and went to the post office.
Then is he still head of ITV then?
Well, he's just resigned. This is what I'm telling you. I heard about this earlier today, but I'm now seeing a business report coming through on my machine. It says ITV came under fire from some of its biggest shareholders as Adam Crozier quit as chief executive. The 53-year-old will stand down next month after 7 years in charge. Fears were raised that the company could change strategy, as one shareholder said it was a big job half done.
Right.
That's really interesting.
So, ITV's in an interesting place, isn't it? Because television at the moment is not exactly making anything like the kind of money that it should.
No,
it used to.
Absolutely. Insiders say really disappointed that Adam is going. I'm trying to find out why he's going. A new CEO and then, let's say, a 100-day review. It's understood that Mr. Crozier has recently clashed with ITV over his pay. Golly, he was getting millions. I mean, he's worth every penny because the share price shot up and turnover increased a lot. But boardroom sources insisted the tensions played no role in his departure. Once Adams made a decision, he wants to get on with things. It's amicable and he does it. To say a job is half done is a bit ungrateful. I can tell you,
it's a very cutthroat business, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I went round to Saatchi & Saatchi once when I'd been told by an insider at the FA, Adam Crozier was going to be the next chief executive. Yeah. And I went into his office and I sat down and I said, Mr. Crozier, I'm sorry to bother you. I said, I'm the executive editor of the Press Association. Are you going to be the next chief executive of the FA? And it took him, he spat his coffee out. He had no idea that I knew.
And how long before he actually got the job or before it was announced?
About a month.
Right.
Took over about a month later. Yeah. And remained
Well, I would say, without knowing too much about the particular situation, that there's been a lot of pressure brought to bear on ITV.
Yes, there has.
Not least over sport, as ever.
That's right.
Particularly football.
Yeah.
The loss of the Champions League.
That's right.
The fact that they don't really have much football on there at all anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
And they're not making much money, or not as much as they used to.
I remained great friends with him for years. And funnily enough, he lived next door to our old pal Stuart Higgins.
Is that right?
Yeah, in West London.
Yeah. Well, there we are.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mikes at the Two Mikes on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mikes TV.
If you ever wanted to find a criminal of any persuasion here, it was well known. You went to see Buster, and you say, Buster.
Does he still have a flower stall?
No, he hanged himself in a garage around the corner from his flower stall quite a few years ago.
Well, there's not much point asking him, then, is there?
No, but I mean, that's what people used to do.
Buster?
You go and see people who are known to be within the criminal fraternity.
Yeah, but you don't know where they are.
You do. I would find them.
Where?
Look, we've been journalists. We know where to find villains. I know where to find villains.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at one.
The goalkeeper was a guy called Tommy Lawrence, very ugly man, and rather fat.
You say that.
And he was, as a result of being ugly and fat, he was known as the Flying Pig.
Was he?
Yeah. No, he was. That was his title.
Very harsh.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm not being rude about him being
No, I'm sure
ugly
you wouldn't
and
mind
fat.
you calling him that.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1 a.m. on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
Calgary in Canada. Calgary.
No. Calgary, which you've now established is in Sardinia.
No, that's Cagliari.
Cagliari, absolutely.
That's not Calgary.
No,
that's got two different letters.
That's right. It absolutely
so
has.
What are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about
yourself up in an enigma now.